So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apostasy. Welcome to today's live stream. This is one of the live streams and videos in the Ramadan series of 2022. If you haven't watched the other videos, feel free to check them out. Today's call in stream is for ex-Muslims to call and share their stories. They can share whatever they want. We'll try to keep it to about 15 minutes each so we can have more callers. But yeah, the floor is yours once you call in. Please leave me a brief introduction of who you are and what you'd like to talk about in the private chat, and you'll be added in the order that I receive callers in. And I'll try to take in as many callers as I can. But if I have to end the stream at some point, I will let you know. So thank you for being here and for joining whoever can join. So thank you again to my moderators, like Music Guy, for always checking in on the audio and the comments. So I'm going to take the first caller. Let's just get right into it. I have Sultan. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Sultan. How's it going?
Hello?
Hi.
You hear me, right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, hey. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
That's okay. No need to be.
Because you are the reason. No, not reason. It means to say it differently. You helped me to leave this religion. I saw you on TikTok and your videos, and I had my own doubts. I was always thinking, this can't be real, this is not right, this is wrong, and all this. And after seeing, I always thought, like, they tell us Shaitan is making you doubt your religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
They say Shaitan is telling you this and this. So I thought maybe it's really Shaitan and all is true. But seeing someone else like you having doubts and talking about it has helped me to question it too, to do my own research, learning more about science, about the theory of evolution and all these things has really helped me to leave it, And I feel so much better. And I just wanted to thank you with I don't know how to call it. I just want to thank you because you really have saved my life,
No, thank you. That's very sweet of you to.
I really have to thank you so much. So much. You have no idea. And I'm so happy that I have the possibility to call you now and to say thank you. That's all I wanted to say,
I really don't know what to say. I'm very humbled.
Really, because let me be really honest now. I'm almost 40 and I have lived all my life with this fear. I even have mental health issues because of I was so scared of hell and all this. But you, yeah, thank you.
I'm really glad I was able to help. All I did was just, help you start that journey, but you did it.
Yeah.
You did it by yourself.
Yes, I did my own research too. That's why at first, the time I said you are the reason I left Islam, that can be taken wrong too, That's why I said you helped me. And I did my own research. I don't have left Islam because of you, but you have, I don't know to say it in English, You helped
I
me.
understand you. Yeah.
You showed me I don't need to have fear. I can have doubts. I can do my research and learn. And so, yeah, thank you, Aladdin.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me because it really helps me to hear that it is helping. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
That's why I start doing same thing. I'm posting about religion on TikTok because maybe I can help someone too. Who knows?
Yeah, passing it on, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a little aside, but I really hated being on TikTok because of it was just not helping me at all. Like, it was always against me, the amount of reporting that would get my account taken down. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that I pushed as far as I did, because just in that limited amount of time, I've had so many people find me on TikTok, not even on YouTube. And I'm really glad that you came across my account before it disappeared.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the call and letting me know all that.
I
I
have
hope
to
you're not
thank.
nervous anymore. Sorry.
No, it's okay now. And I understand you completely about you not liking TikTok. I really have 3 accounts now because they report, you get banned, you can't post. But I still try, I have 3 accounts. I will not leave. They will try to silence us. They will try it, but I will no. But I'm not so I don't have I don't know how to call it. I don't know how to use YouTube. I'm happy that I even could make it possible to call now. So TikTok is easier for me. I can do this. I can't do like here on YouTube or so, that's why I do what I can. And so, yeah.
Yeah, TikTok is very easy to get into. So I hope
Yeah.
I hope that you have a decent time there. I know it's difficult, at least to start with.
Yeah.
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 But thank you for wanting to do something and passing it on.
Yes, because I know how this fear is, and I don't want people have this fear going through life with this fear, It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, then let me not stop you from other callers. I just wanted to say thank you. I wish you only the best and keep doing what you're doing. You're helping us, okay?
Thank you so much for the encouragement. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks. You too, Sultan. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was really nice. I'm flabbergasted. I don't really have much to say, so I'm going to just smoothly transition to reading some comments instead. But a bunch of them are flattering, so I still don't want to read those. But yeah, there are a lot of supportive comments as well. Thank you, Sultan, for calling in, and your call was really appreciated. I'm glad you made it through the nervousness and called in. Apostate Jasmine is here. That is the Apostate Jasmine. So say hi, everyone. Reason on Faith, thanks for watching and joining me often. He says, love these call-in streams. I can see how many people they help. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya says, great format for normalizing ex-Muslims. Yeah, I feel like people could get tired of hearing me talk about my story and my thoughts, and I think more of us need to come out and talk. And it doesn't mean starting your own channel. If it can just mean talking for a segment, on another channel, I hope that helps. Yeah. Hey there, Nordic says, thank you, Alauddin. I'm listening to this live while being severely mentally and physically ill and scared of the now and tomorrow, but I feel like you and your videos are my only family. I'm sorry that you're struggling so much. I really hope that you find some remedies for your illnesses, but I'm glad that in the meantime I'm able to help. Thank you so much. And I hope not, but Ibn Qayyim says this channel is way underrated, deserves 100,000 subs. That's a scary number, but thank you. I appreciate the sentiment. Okay, I'm going to take the next callers now. We've got Soleil, who's going to be joining next. Just give me a second to, yeah, I'm adding Soleil in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, hello, Aladdin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I was really happy when I saw that you are doing a live in this week. And yes, thank you for giving us a voice. It's really important what you are doing. And I can introduce myself to people that don't know me. I'm a French Algerian ex-Muslim, and I created a group of ex-Muslims on Discord. Then we created a podcast, in French, and we are translating ex-Muslim contents in French. Yes, voilà.
Yeah, I'll as always, I'll mention your channel in the description for those who want to go and follow him, especially if you're French speakers. Please go and subscribe.
You know, we had a lot of things happening in French. For example, there was a documentary that came out just last week, and we had a member of our group. He showed his face, and are you here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, my camera is acting up.
Oh no. So yes, it is a documentary about ex-Muslims, and it is a big deal because it is a French TV channel, a public channel, and it was on TV. They were talking about ex-Muslims, and in the documentary, it is half in German and half in French. There are 3 German ex-Muslims, and then there is 2 French ex-Muslims, and it was really a big deal because it has 500,000 views, 500,000 views, and a lot of people heard for the first time the word apostate or ex-Muslim.
What's that word in French, by the way?
Ex-Musulman, or for ex-Muslim, and for apostate is apostat. Apostate.
Okay.
It's like, yes, same.
Yeah. That's a huge step.
Yeah. And a lot of people came in our group this week because of this documentary, and everyone was really happy about this. And it is really a huge step for us, because in French, it's the first time there is a documentary in French about it, about us.
I'm really happy to hear about that first step.
Yeah. And we have also something that came out really huge. There is an African man. He's an ex-Muslim, and he was imam. He was an imam. He's an ex-Muslim imam. He was teaching Islam at the madrasa. He was leading prayers in his neighborhood in Africa. I cannot specify the country, because this man, he's targeted. He's taking a lot of risks, and he did a testimony with us in our channel, in our podcast, and he's amazing. He's extraordinary. He's describing all the contradictions in the Quran, and yes, it's a big testimony that we had. It came out only yesterday, and it's really.
How's it
really
been
important.
received so far? The documentary and that testimony.
So for the testimony of the ex-imam, Muslims were in the comments saying, "No, he was not a real imam. You are lying."
Of course.
and someone said, "Oh, you are African. You must be ashamed to talk with white people, because white people have slaves." And he was really stupid, because we are not even white. We are North African.
Right.
And slaves, we know that in Islam there are slaves too. So yeah.
You know what's funny and sad? I was just having this conversation today with an ex-Muslim friend of mine, and she was saying, I was talking about how this kind of content and this kind of conversation should be witnessed by all, not just the in-group, not just Muslims and ex-Muslims. And she was saying how, no, white people should not be involved in these conversations because, they used to have slaves and this and that. And I'm like, are you not aware of how your people became Muslim, or the history of Islamic slavery? And she's an ex-Muslim, and she's still vilifying white people. And I said, no, this conversation needs to be had in public. Everyone needs to be involved, because without their awareness, no one's really going to help us. It's not going to be the Muslims helping us or anything. So yeah, it's weird how identity politics is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I
Sorry about
thought
my
you were.
cameras acting up,
Oh yeah,
but I'm still here.
it's Allah. He censors you.
Yeah,
He and
technical difficulties.
it's weird because what we are doing, it should not be possible because during the month of Ramadan, all the devils are enchained, are in prison. So it would not be possible for us to criticize Islam during this month.
Well, the
No?
answer is that this is already in nafs al-ammara bis-su', right? Like this is the internal self that has been corrupted already. So we're extensions
Ah,
of shaitan now. Yeah,
yeah, it's too late for us.
yeah.
Also, I wanted to share with you a thing that I loved this last week. There was a rap Ex-Muslim that came out in English by Ray, the producer. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know
I
if
heard
you
about
heard.
that. I haven't watched it
Uh,
yet, but I heard about it.
amazing. I think 200 views. It's only me because I played it again and again. uh, It was really great. So, and I think that apostate should use art to promote, to express ourselves with
Not to be
music. Yeah,
unoriginal or a copycat, but I've had the idea of a rap for a while now. It's just
yeah,
I can't get myself to rap. It's so cringy in my head. I don't know why. Like I never wanted to be a rapper, but at some point
yeah,
I might come up with a video like that.
yeah. Me too. I
Yeah.
play the guitar, and I sing a little. I play the guitar, and I would love to make a song. I have some songs in stock. I have songs in French.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in French,
Yeah.
but I would love to sing it sometime.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking
So yeah,
forward to Here someone is well the one of the moderators, music guy, has put your channel in the live chat so people go follow him. And I have a
yes,
question for you, by the way. Well, Happy Camper does. Thank you for the super chat, Happy Camper. They say, do you have a French Discord group?
yes, of course. Yes, we have one.
Mhm.
It's called c'est la taverne des apostats. It's like a tavern for ex-Muslims, But it's a group. We have 350 people. Because yes, we grew each month. We grow, and we spend really good times talking with each other, sharing our testimonies, and and we created a podcast special for Ramadan, because you I think you did videos too called Special Ramadan,
Yeah.
and we copied you. And, and so yeah, we are doing like a circle of apostates. We are 6 or 7, and we are talking about our Ramadan, how it happened, and it was really funny. There is a girl. She had to go to. She is doing Ramadan. She's an ex-Muslim, but she lives with her parents, so she doesn't have a choice. Yes, Sonia is a member in our group. Uh,
Yeah.
Sonia Lena. And yeah,
Mhm.
and so there is a girl. She went to the prayer at night, at the Tarawih. I don't know if you call it the same in English.
Tarawih.
Tarawih.
I think
It's
so.
the
I just know it in Arabic,
yeah,
but yeah, Tarawih.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really long. You stay 1 hour and a half standing up.
Mhm.
The Imam he recites the whole Quran, a lot of chapters,
There's
and it's
tahajjud for those
really
who really want to go the extra mile. Tahajjud
yeah.
also, especially in the last, was it the last 10 days or whenever they think
Mhm.
Laylatul Qadr is going to be? But yeah, it is
Mhm.
it is a lot of suffering. Did you used to go to and pray Taraweeh and Tahajjud?
Yeah, yeah, a lot. I was forced by my father when I was a teenager, but then when I was a young adult, 20 years old, I used to go with some friends, but I never. It was a good time after the prayer when we could talk in front of the mosque with friends, But during the prayer, it was really tiring, boring. It is hurting even because you stay on your knees, you stay standing up. It's I don't know if it is a psychological torture, maybe, but I was really happy when it finishes. You know, when it ends. At least finally. Yeah.
I remember I felt like I was doing a good thing, right? And at some point, the points stopped mattering, like adding more hasanat and more hasanat and more hasanat. Like it just felt very silly. But I was still doing it because I wanted to do a good thing or what I thought was a good thing. In reality, it wasn't helping anyone. It wasn't even the meditation value of prayer. You know, how people sometimes might calm down when they pray. No, at this point, it wasn't benefiting me at all or anyone. But even towards the end, I would feel guilty if I felt pain and I'm like, okay, this is enough. I don't want to keep doing this. That thought would make me feel guilty. So I'm glad I'm able to escape the cycle of whether I do it or not, I'm suffering, right? Like if I don't do it, I feel guilty. If I do it and I don't love it, I feel guilty. But yeah, I'm glad it's over for me. And I hope it's over for everyone who doesn't want to be doing it. Oh, I have a political question for you, if you don't mind. What are your thoughts on Macron getting re-elected in France?
Personally, I don't care about politics because I don't think I don't think a politic man or woman will help us ex-Muslims. It's ourselves who must really be activists like yourself or others. And I think
and yourself and yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. I try. Really politics. Generally, I don't speak about politics in my group because we are a lot of people, and if we talk politics, everyone is divided, and it's a war. It's like a civil war in my group. So we don't talk about politics. It's not because we are not courageous, but it is to have a harmony in our group. Like if you have a political view, good for you. But in our group, the priority is to unite ourselves and create and produce videos and podcasts. And yeah. So, but I am not sad that Macron, because I didn't want to vote for one or the other, Macron or Le Pen. But I think the solution will come from us.
From us, yeah. How much do you think this conversation should involve non-Muslims? Like, would you want them to be in your audience?
Yeah, it can help. Yes, even in my group, we allow some non-ex-Muslims because there are some really interesting people, and we are not a sect. You know, we can accept everyone. However, maybe they will not have. It will be in the internet, in Discord. I come to speak with ex-Muslims because in my life I don't see ex-Muslims in my life in the real life, and so Discord is the only place where I can talk with ex-Muslims because the other people, the Christians, the atheists, the French people, I see them every day. But so I didn't understand the question if it can involve. I don't understand the question.
So, say there's a talk show, for example, and it's not just a documentary, but you can have a Muslim on the show, an ex-Muslim, a mediator. Do you think anywhere there would be space for a non-Muslim to give their opinion, or would you want them to be watching that show? Do you think it's beneficial to have them in the audience?
Yes. For example, I think Apostate Prophet, he did a debate with a Muslim, and the arbitrary, there was a middleman. He was not an ex-Muslim, you know, he was an atheist, I don't know.
Well,
and it
aside
was
from
good.
the mediator and the
Yeah,
debate, like, would
yeah.
do you think it's beneficial to have non-Muslims watching these discussions, or does it
Mhm.
not matter really?
Yes, it matters. It matters because they can have friends, Muslim friends, and it is good for them to know because they can help us in promoting our message, and we are normalizing the fact that we are ex-Muslims, and I think yes, we should involve non-ex-Muslims. Yes, it can help us.
I agree with that, just in general, so they're aware of this conflict to begin with, because
Mhm.
the only information they get about Islam is either from the sources, the people who really hate Muslims and Islam, um,
Yeah.
and otherwise, on the other side, you got all the Muslims saying Islam is beautiful, Islam is this, Islam is that. Those are the two
Mhm.
perspectives that they get, and it's easier for them to fall for one and not the other. So
Yeah.
hearing this third perspective, I think, is very beneficial. And
Mhm.
like you said, they have friends and family, maybe, or mostly friends who are Muslims, and
Mhm.
they're not aware of what goes on inside those households. They're not aware of the ex-Muslims, who are relatives of those Muslims. So they only
Mhm.
see the treatment and the rhetoric just towards non-believers, which can be very good,
Mhm.
right? The way that Muslims behave with ex-Muslims is way harsher than how they behave with non-Muslims. So I think
Mhm.
people need to be aware of that. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah. I have an example at my job. I don't do. I eat during this month during Ramadan. I don't care because I moved 1 hour away from my parents. So I tell everyone I'm agnostic. I'm an ex-Muslim. I tell everyone I'm at my job. And during Ramadan, they told me why are you eating? It was French people. Uh, I said, I am free. I want to eat. I'm free. I am an ex-Muslim. I'm not a Muslim anymore. So and a colleague of mine said he is a fake Arab.
So a French colleague of yours who's not a
Yeah,
Muslim said that you're a
yeah,
fake Arab.
yeah. I am what? I am not a Chinese. I am a
Okay.
fake. I was a little angry, but I didn't want to start trouble. But he was not mean. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to make a joke,
Mhm.
but
But it's
it
sad
was
that
really mean.
it's
Yeah.
tied, like the religion is tied to your color or your background. It's just that if you're gonna be this looking, or you have this name, then you must be Muslim. Otherwise, you're a fake one.
Mhm.
I know he's joking, but it's sad that it's
Uh,
so tied together.
so,
Yeah.
so it's good that non-ex-Muslims should learn what we are living, so that they won't do bad jokes. This way.
Yeah. 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 Well, is there
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to share today with us, Soleil?
Yes, one last thing. Thanks to the documentary, we French ex-Muslims, we made a link with the German ex-Muslims. They have some people who contacted us, and we will help them to build a sort of organization like ours. So it's really exciting to help each other. It is international. It's not just one country. It's and I'm really excited to work with German ex-Muslims, and it's really good news for me, and to be able to speak with you, who are you know who are
That's
English
that's
speaker.
yeah, that's good news for everyone. Yeah. Well, what's the name
Yeah.
of that documentary, by the way, so people can
Oh,
watch it?
so it is in the channel. It's in Arte. Arte. Uh, Arte. It's a French channel, and the title in French is Les musulmans qui se détournent de leur foi. It's like the Muslims who left their faith,
Okay.
and it
Someone's
is in
gonna type
French.
that in the live chat, by the way.
Yeah.
Please, somebody type that in the live chat, and
Ah,
we'll pin that. Yeah.
I
Not
can write it. So.
That's okay. Someone else will. That's fine.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for
So
sharing that as well. Yeah.
thank you so much, Adin.
Yeah, thank you for calling in again.
Yes, thank you. I will come back next time. I'll let the time for other callers now.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you later then.
Thank you.
All right.
Goodbye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Merci. Bye.
Bye. All right. Thanks, Soleil, for calling in. Question that I received while I was talking to Soleil. Joltik says, why don't you stream on Twitch? To be honest, way too many social media platforms, haven't had the time to coordinate anything. Again, please remember this is not a full-time job for me, so it's very difficult for me to keep up with all this stuff, but maybe someday. I don't know how, give your thoughts in the comments. Would that be a good idea? I don't know. I haven't been on Twitch really. Yeah. Marco says, give him a job, Alauddin. As if I am an employer of some sort, and he's doing more than fine himself. Like he's doing a lot of work with his Discord group. This stuff takes a lot of time, and people keep asking me, why don't you have a Discord group for ex-Muslims? I just can't stay on top of it. So thank you, Soleil, for all the work that you're doing. Let's see. I'm going to take this one, and then the next caller, Thero. I'm taking you in a bit, but I'll just answer this question if I can read it. Jojo says, I have a question to all ex-Muslims. How do you people deal with Christianity? Because I needed to know that Christianity is man-made too. Thank you very much. We are Myth Vision. How do we deal with Christianity? That's a kind of a vague question. I don't know how to answer it exactly, but I don't get in discussions about Christianity because I simply don't care. It doesn't affect my life very much, but I'm not saying that it doesn't affect other people's lives. I'm saying there's more than enough people knowledgeable on the topic who are motivated to talk about it, and will be doing that. So I'm not too concerned about Christianity. And I'm glitching in and out again. Yeah, but I address it the same way I address Islam, which is the onus of proof falls on the person making the claim. So Christianity has never been proven, so it can just be dismissed. Like, these discussions aren't even that necessary, to be honest. But, whoever wants to have them can have them. Sorry about the glitching. I'll just take the next caller then. The next caller is Thero. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, how's it going?
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, cool. I just want to say thank you for providing content. You and your group of people, Abdullah Samir and all that. It's really helpful.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm able to.
Yeah, I just I called in today. I wanted to just say that not everyone starts off really religious. I didn't grow up quite religious. My parents were slightly religious, but they weren't on top of it, but they were expecting me to be on top of it. And I've only just recently left because finding you on TikTok, finding Abdullah Samir on TikTok as well. Mm-hmm. And my main issue with just being an ex-Muslim is being perceived as an ex-Muslim. Because on the whole, it's always you're treated as you didn't try hard enough and stuff, because I really did try hard. I tried so hard. I went into full-on depressive episodes because of being so terrified and being so in my shell and scared of everything and feeling guilty about being myself. But I want to emphasize that I didn't leave to be queer. I didn't leave to do drugs. I didn't leave to drink. I didn't leave to do all of these things that people say that we leave to do,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
It can be very frustrating to keep hearing those things, and it's easier to ignore. It really depends on the position you are in life, and physically how many Muslims are around you every day and how often do you hear this stuff. But if you're able to just tune out from that, if you have the luxury of being away from the source of this kind of rhetoric, then you should. And then it's just about reminding yourself that their words shouldn't really get to you, that they're they're really projecting really hard because they're trying to not address the source of this doubt that or this fact that people can genuinely not believe in their religion. That's just so hard for them to comprehend, so they take it out on you and others. So yeah, whenever you hear this this rhetoric, which is you left to sin, and just remember that Christians say the same thing too, and that alone should prove that it's all the same. It's not really about the truthfulness of whether you left to sin. It's a defense mechanism of theirs. But yeah, I'm sorry that you have to bear through that.
Of course, it's just like, because I so I come from like a proper Muslim family, like they were born and raised in Yemen, came over to England, just hard like religion and like original Arabic and stuff like that, and it's pretty hard to have conversations with people, especially when it's like your parents or it's the people that you work around. Unfortunately, I will dash out the stereotype that all young Muslim men work in retail shops, and in my experience they do. So like just having the trouble of like watching what you say and just being extra careful, not projecting your true self and stuff. It's hard, obviously, but I just want to say that like people will get through it, and it's you'll get over it. It's fine, just go have some McDonald's, you'll be good.
Yeah, if only it was this simple, but hopefully someday.
Yeah, and like just having conversations, like open conversations about people's beliefs, especially when it comes to Muslims, is very hard. They're very like cognitively dissonant to being open to having conversations. And considering like I go to university to study Christianity and Catholicism, so that's like my main, so I can discuss the positives and the negatives of belief in Christianity and such, but it's difficult for me as a person who wasn't raised to be extremely religious and to having left the religion for the multiple like completely morality issues within the text. It's very hard to have conversations with people, especially when they're like so against talking and being open.
Well, how do you I got a couple of apologetic retorts to you. First of all, how do you respond to someone who says, well, Islam says think and research and do this and that? How do you respond to that? Basically, they're saying what you're experiencing is un-Islamic. So yeah, what do you say?
Well, I did try. I contacted my local imam to ask questions about Aisha and her age and stuff. And like they don't give answers. They're like, oh, only God knows. And I'm like, okay, good for you. But like, how is this helping me? Like, I'm in a situation where I am so desperate, clutching at straws to try and believe, to try and get any semblance of normality back. And like, how am I supposed to do that if the information isn't either like it's not readily available, or it's so like wacky and it's like not satisfying my needs,
Yeah. And so you would say that you've done everything you could to retain your faith.
Exactly, yeah. And that and more. Like I've had conversations and none of it's helped. So I don't know where to go from there. And then you find like complete morality issues and you try and justify it, and you try to like jump as many hoops as you can so that people don't look at you like your prophet's a kiddie fiddler. Like it's just
Yeah. I mean, even aside from having to justify it to people, I wanted to justify it to myself. To be honest, I wasn't even thinking of what other people think of Islam or me as a Muslim. In that moment, I'm just thinking of myself. How do I justify this to myself? Because you can't lie to yourself. You can't just keep praying as if you don't think deep down this is BS or God is there's something that's not adding up. So yeah, you've done your best, but Islam boils down to this idea of a kafir, right? And I will always mention this point. and correct me if I'm wrong, what people would tell you at this point is that, actually, I'll let you answer. So you've tried your best to retain your faith. Why did that not happen, even though you went and asked questions? What would a Muslim say is the reason why you didn't become Muslim or remain Muslim?
Because I was lying to myself, or I didn't pray hard enough, or my journeys to the mosque weren't, rigorous enough. I didn't have to climb any mountains, or no faith tests, or I don't know, maybe I went to Catholic school too many times, or like I don't know, but this I don't know.
So whatever it is your fault. Even if you're not aware of what you did wrong and you're lying to yourself because of some like 2 levels deep kind of blockage in your mind, they're going to say at the end of the day, it's something you did wrong, or the fault lies with you. And that alone should disprove this whole Islam idea. Imagine if the only avenue is you either believe or you're a liar or you're mentally ill. Like, I don't know how no one else is perceiving how insane this conversation is.
I feel like
yeah.
there's a giant lack of empathy when it comes to that thought. And I think that the only thing that makes us human to begin with is empathy, to be able to look into someone's eyes and like understand, where they're coming from. And it's pretty hard to do that when you belong in hell or something, like it's always like a barrage of attacks when it comes to like non-belief. Like I've tried my best and it didn't happen. So like, what do you want me to do now? And then they'll
keep
be like,
trying your best till you die is their thought.
Just like go on the prayer mat for some more times. I'm like, but I'm lying to myself and it's not doing any good. Like and if anything, I feel like if I prayed and stuff and I didn't believe, I feel like that would be a greater insult to God than, if I just went along my day being a normal human being, like being, just spreading as much love as I possibly could.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're not letting at least those words get in your mind anymore. This idea that it's your fault, like you've gotten to your conclusions, you've done your best, and I think that everyone who does their absolute best to prove Islam or find out why they should believe in it, I think most of them at least would end up leaving it. Would you agree with that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
I would say that if someone sets out to find the truthfulness of Islam, or the proof for it, or why someone should believe in it, most of the time, if they actually went through all that research, they would end up believing less. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the problem is with especially young Muslims today, they just take whatever like their parents or their elders or whatever just tell them and they roll with it. There's no in-depth research. There's no like understanding. It's like, when a child preaches on the corner of a street, like they don't understand the words, they're just saying them, and it's not helpful, especially if it's like, because it's original Arabic, isn't it? So for many people that's inaccessible to begin with. So as soon as you find something in your own language, like your perception of it will change greatly.
That's if you can trust that this is a good translation and you don't fall for the blanket excuse, which is, this is a mistranslation, therefore don't worry about it.
I mean, there's this notion in the Quran that only Muslims are the only good people in the world. And like, or like the Jews and the Christians and all of these other pagans or whatever are like the worst of the humanity. And it's such a black and white statement to make, because if you actually looked at like statistics, who adopts most of the kids in the world? Atheists and Christians. Well,
that's not to mention that adoption is illegal in Islam. That's a whole other thing, but yeah.
Oh, that hurt me. I had a conversation with a woman from a mosque. Well, obviously she was from a mosque. So a Muslim woman, and I've expressed that like I wanted to adopt kids and stuff, and she was like, "Oh, I would only do that for the hasanat," and I was like, I was just so surprised in like, You would take it
She would
for-
only do it for those who aren't Arabic speakers. She would only do it for the good deeds, is why she would adopt, is what she's saying.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And I was like, that how can you treat a human being in such a monetary way?
You know what's messed up is this monetary is a good way to put it. It's almost like an MLM scheme when you think about it, because when she adopts those kids, if whatever the legal meaning of adoption is, because she's not legally allowed to adopt them, but whatever it may be, if she raises those kids and she's thinking about all the points that she's getting for feeding them, for everything, she's also going to indoctrinate them hard, because there's this belief that if you kind of like teach a man how to fish, but with Islamic practices, if you teach someone how to get good deeds, to do good deeds, you are kind of getting a benefit from that too. So it is an MLM scheme. It's like a pyramid scheme. She's going to try hard to make, or likely if she's thinking in points already, she's going to try to make these kids maximize the amount of points that they get, so she can maximize the amount of like good deeds and points that she gets. It's a sad way to live, and it's the wrong reason to adopt.
I think that like hurt me as a person, because I've met people who were adopted into good families, into bad families, and they're people. It's not like a commodity, And I think like with the whole hasanat, good deeds, bad deeds thing, it's very creative the way they've set it up, or whoever like created the religion to begin with. Because I was talking to my father about this, and he said that he would buy like a wheelchair for a hospital, so every time that hospital uses that wheelchair, he could get like a good deed from it. And I was just like, and that's like after his death as well, like he could still be gaining money, like this was some kind of like video game. Like it's very, I don't know, it's very like I like the idea of a balancing act, but at the same time it's disgusting. Like it's not realistic. It's very primitive.
Well, an apologist would argue that, hey, if it gets people doing the good deed, so who cares? But what would you say to that?
Well, causation, correlation is not causation.
No, I mean, it is causing the person. I mean, at the end of the day, they did buy, like your father would have bought that wheelchair for the hospital, whether they did it out of the goodness of their heart or because of the points system, they did it, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to that it's an effective method to get people to do good things?
Well, I feel like, I mean, there's more like different ways of getting people to do good things rather than, worshipping some, Middle Eastern 7th century person. There's like, there's so many other ways you could put it. And I feel like intention matters more than the action when it comes to like morality's sake. But
I don't quite agree. Not in all cases, I would say. I mean, the person using the wheelchair, it doesn't matter to them whether the person who did it was charitable or because they wanted a bigger house in Jannah. Doesn't really matter to them. But what I would say is it doesn't come with no strings attached. There's a lot of harm that comes from that mentality too. So just finding a case scenario where it is beneficial anyway, that the person bought the wheelchair is good. There are other scenarios where the person would, for example, subject themselves to pain for longer while fasting or while praying because they think that compounds hasanat, or that there's more than just one scenario or another. So yeah, there's a lot of simplistic ways to think about it, but like you said, there are other ways to encourage people to do these things that don't involve a point system, an outdated kind of mentality in a point system.
Yeah. I mean, I think with like the whole wheelchair example, it baffles me how like every use gets a good deed rather than like the giving of, because I feel like if you combine the points with the intention of one person using it, I think that's enough, rather than every time someone uses this wheelchair you'll get like a good deed out of it because it's always there. I feel like it's very greedy. I think like it's not
I think it's meant to be a kind of like the carrot on the stick thing. It's just more carrots is the idea. You know, it's more motivation to do it. But correct me, I don't know if this is actually a fatwa or not, but I remember that I was taught that there are similar rules to sayyi'at as well, like the bad deeds. If you do something that enables someone to continue doing a bad deed perpetually, or other people, you're gonna take their sins too. So yeah, that point system goes both ways as far as I remember. And that is a way of scaring people even more. Like if you do a sin and someone sees it and emulates it, then you're taking their sins too. You know, so it's amplifying the reward or the fear.
Can I just ask, like, do you think that people are more scared of sinning, like, in history rather than now? Because I feel like the overarching like idea of sin isn't so big in this world today because of, you know.
I don't have enough historical knowledge to tell you. It would just be speculation, to be honest. I don't even know the records of Muhammad and the people around him, how accurate they are. But I would have a feeling that those people were more likely to actually believe in the occult and the idea of heaven and hell and all that. And it consumes their day-to-day life because there's a lot less to distract them from these ideas. There are a lot of believers today that just mindlessly they believe, they just don't think of these things every day, and they sin and they do whatever. But if their life wasn't so like if they didn't have a device in their hand that enables so much sin, they would be more focused on the punishment, I think, if there's less going on in the world. That's just my speculation.
I think I agree with that. I don't want to take any like more time. Just give the rest of the time. But thank you for like hosting this. Like it was very helpful, and good luck in the future and stuff.
Thank you, and thanks for calling in.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Okay, I'm gonna read a comment and then I'll go to the next caller. So Shrifi says, there are people who have already done the research. You don't need to be an expert in Arabic when the tafsir already confirms what you're criticizing. I agree with that. So if you want to criticize the way that a word is written or the grammatical error in a verse or something, sure, you got to be well versed in Arabic. But if you want to criticize the moral of a verse, and the Arabic it's already been translated, and you consult multiple sources, you consult not only the translation to your language, but the exegesis, which would give you more details, not just what the replacement word for that one is, but what the context is, and so on. Then you've done more than enough. So if the apologist's excuse is still that you don't understand Arabic, therefore you could never understand, and we should just dismiss this contention that you have with this one verse or another, what they're saying is that this book is useless to most of the world because it will never be understood, and that their faith is not actually built on examining what they're learning. It's built on repetitive thoughts and repetitive mantras. So yeah, I don't think that works for them. Okay, so let's take the next caller, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. And one of my cats is making an appearance. That's Apu. Yeah, Apu's always cleaning himself. All right, let's take the next caller. Who is the next caller? We've got Sista X. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going, Sista?
Not too bad. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Awesome. So just a quick heads up, I am recovering from an infection, so I may just start coughing, so I apologize in advance for that. But yeah, I want to say thank you, first of all, for all that you're doing. I feel like you bring so much reason with humor and calmness. It's very refreshing, and it's very important work, so thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. So I guess just to share my story and how I got into this whole shebang is so I started off as the defender of the faith. So this is when I was like in my 20s, like early 20s, 20-year-old. So I had a bunch of time. So I would be on the forums a lot. And in this particular forum, like they had like a section where they would criticize religion. and all religions over there, so Islam was included. So I, of course, was like, they don't even know what they're talking about. And this is coming from someone who, like, I was raised as a Muslim, but I never actually read any of the scriptures. You know, like your parents teach you things, and then they say, oh, like Islam gave women rights, you know, like, or like, you know, care about charity, which they do, but it's just, you know, what they told me is what I heard and what I knew, and whatever the scholars, you know, they have their YouTube platforms and whatnot, so those kind of things. So anyways, I go in thinking I know everything, and I'm like, let me guide them to the right direction, you know, they're misinformed and stuff, you know, typical Muslim things. So anyways, I go in, and then they are basically with student forums, so they were very evidence focused. So they would provide their evidence, and excuse me, they would ask for evidence from me. So that actually kind of compelled me or whatever to go actually read and, you know, double check what they're saying, and also read to so that I can present evidence myself. So anyways, nothing really hit me. Like, I would, like, read their stuff, and I'd be like, "Oh, whatever," and then, like, I would find my stuff, and then I'll share that. But there's one very specific thing that really kind of broke the spell, I would say, for me. I read about excuse me, like, sex slavery in Islam, and, like, I was, you know, confirming, doing my background research on it, and, it was when I was reading an article on this website called Ask Mom, about sex slavery, to kind of double check, is it even allowed? Because to me, it's like mind blowing. And then they were actually like defending it and saying that because there was war at that time, and like we had all these prisoners of war, and they didn't have anywhere else to go. So this was like the only option, like, you know, so that they had clothes and were taken care of and whatnot, which is ridiculous. So, anyways, that right there, like after reading that article, I was very horrified and kind of was just like, this is kind of the limit. Like, at that point, I remember just thinking, if Islam is real, if this God does exist, it's really someone I don't even want to believe in. Like, I don't even think I can believe in anymore, because this is just ridiculous. Like, as a woman, I honestly, like, I put myself in their situation, and it's something I would never want for myself or my family members, anybody. And then I was just like, I could not move forward with it. So anyways, I still, you
Well, you had empathy.
know,
Like why do you think you had empathy and others did not? Like the person writing the article didn't have enough empathy to think the same way as you did. Why do you think that's the case?
a very good question. I feel like sometimes you really have to be able to relate to the situation. I think for me, I could relate better because I am like a woman, right? So I understand what it is like to be a woman and kind of the struggles that women face in society. And I believe the article that was written, it was written by a man. So they don't have that same kind of insight, I would think. So I was able to better empathize with the women, you know, the slave woman in that situation, because I can understand how it would feel. Whereas if you're never in that position, through like society or whatever, like not society, but like through the ages, I feel like there's always been this like struggle with women, and like,
So do you think it's just mostly gender? That's why the person's not able to empathize because the apologist is a male?
I think that that's not the only thing. Definitely, there's different factors for sure. But what do you think?
I don't quite know. I don't think gender is the only thing, but it is one of them for
Mhm.
sure. It's a huge component because it's horrifying. I mean, I don't know if I can give an example right off the top of my head, but there are situations where I realized, oh, I feel unsafe or uncomfortable in this situation, and then I realized that's how women feel all the time about that. And some people are incapable of having those moments. So when I heard of this kind of practice, I thought to myself, would I? My first thought was, it was a very typical Arab guy thought. Would I want this to happen to my sister or my mother or a female relative of mine? which is, I guess, a start, right? No, I don't want this to happen to someone that I care about who happens to be a female. Well, do I want this to happen to any human who happens to be a female? I certainly don't think so. Do I want this to happen to myself if I were a female? That's a third, layer of awareness that I don't think a lot of them are capable of. But I think it's religion dulls empathy is what I think. I think many religions do dull empathy, and it's selective. Like they might be the most empathetic when it comes to charity giving and this and that, but there's a lot of strings attached that they're not even aware of. And this is one of those things that I think indoctrination gets in the way, and the conclusion is that Islam is true. Therefore, even if it means letting go of empathy, this must be right. I don't care how we get there. I won't even look at how we're supposed to get to that conclusion. But yeah, so not really an answer. I don't know. I
That's
don't
true.
know.
I wonder these things too. Like I read apologetics about stuff, and some of them are so ridiculous. Like the Yaqeen Institute has an article about slavery, and they go on. And no, not even. I'm not about that one. About child marriage and Aisha's marriage to Muhammad, and they start saying things like childhood was just recently like constructed in the 1800s, and like stuff like that. And I'm like, how are you coming up with this ridiculous argument? And
I've answered those, like Omar Sulaiman is at the face of this BS, and I've made a whole dissecting apologetics live stream about it. Whoever wants to go watch it, check it out.
do
But
watch it, it's amazing.
I was just the whole time I'm wondering, how is this even a conversation we're having, let alone in English, where other people can witness this madness and no one's arrested? Like, I'm not advocating for arresting them, but I'm saying they are borderline excusing pedophilia, and no one is viewing them as if they're creeps. No one is investigating their organization. How is this happening? Like, why are we in this, like, the quiet minority? It drives me up the wall, the fact that they can call themselves an organization while saying some of this bull crap. It pisses me off.
And I feel like with that in particular, I don't know what to call him, scholar, Omar Sulaiman, I feel like he just very, very dishonest too. He takes something completely irrelevant and applies it to another situation. So for example, I think I was trying to learn about consent of slaves, like which they can't consent, everybody. It's not a consent, like that power dynamic can't. But still, like, if they were able, like, given a chance to consent to this relationship or anything like that. I'm talking about the sexual aspect of it. And he was saying like how in one situation there's this free woman, it was about a free woman who kind of I don't know if she was raped or attacked by this dude who wasn't like her mahram. He didn't own her or anything. So then the prophet said to stone him. So he took that to say that, see, like the prophet doesn't allow men to force themselves on women, which is like, they want us to look into the context of stuff and really, dig into it to understand that situation. But they don't do the same here. They're not looking at, this is not a slave woman, first of all.
No, I disagree. It's not that Omar didn't do that.
Yeah.
Omar is a liar. Like, he would know. That's not even an obscure part where he could have made a mistake, even though he studies this stuff. This is a lie, like straight up lie. It's silly that someone like that can get paid to do his job and no one shames him for it. And
I think
so
people want to believe so bad that
what's
this
that?
people want to believe so bad that this is the truth, that they take any explanation to kind of minimize these, I guess, human right violations or whatever, these injustices, and they just roll with it because they're like, they can't face that dissonance or accept it or whatnot. Yeah, that's what I feel. It's hard to come to terms with that, but it's important.
It was very relieving to me to talk about it, like, on that stream and just say my thoughts. And I feel like eventually we should start campaigns to just plaster their faces and say, these are this man's words, not even misconstruing them. Anytime someone looks up Omar Sulaiman, I want them to see, and whoever other person, I want them to see that quote. I want them to see that face. because I don't think they deserve to get away with these opinions unchecked.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that will give us some relief at some point, because right now it feels like we're shouting into the void, to be honest.
Mhm. I feel like we're, how can I say it? We're still building, right? We're still kind of growing. Like I know when I first left, there was barely any like YouTubers. Like I know Hassan Radwan was one who I watched, and there was like the Exmuslims of North America that I joined. I really like it was nice to have them there because you know you're not alone and you're not crazy. You're not the only one thinking this, and that there's others like you out there. And then now I feel like we have more people and a bigger community, and I think it's so important to have that community to kind of yeah share your experiences and become stronger so that eventually like what we're doing right now has an impact. People are seeing, right? They're seeing these kind of inconsistencies, and Islam has been unchecked for a really long time. Nobody has had that opportunity to speak up against it, and even now they try to shut it down. You know, they're like
Mhm.
that's Islamophobic, and it's like, hey, it's not. We're just like it's important to look at the text and look at it in a non-biased way too. You know, I feel like we just as believers we go into something just with those rose-colored glasses and just kind of perceive everything as that. You know, like anything, like everything is true, so everything is right, and we don't really challenge. And sometimes people do have that, like their doubts and stuff. And people are able to kind of take off those rose-colored glasses
Yeah.
and kind of move forward. So
So we need time and effort. Yeah.
yep, and it's getting there. So
Yeah.
props to everybody. Yeah. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you for having me on the stream here, and I look forward to seeing more work from you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you calling in and your kind words.
Awesome. Take care. I don't know how to get out of here. Lisa.
I'll kick you out. Don't worry. Take care.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Bye-bye, Sista. I'm going to take one comment and then I'll go to the next caller, which is, who is the next caller? It will be Ayman. All right. Let me read this comment that I came across just now. I Killed Cupid says, I really don't know which scholars to believe. LOL. Everyone seems to be misogynistic. So here's a realization that I had. Any scholar who wants to call themselves Muslim and not be shunned by everyone because they're absolutely going against Islam has to be misogynistic. Not because they're a bad person, not because in their day-to-day life they're a hateful, misogynistic person. Like even Shabir Ali, for example, he strikes me as someone who's not misogynistic. He's had female interviewers on his in his like interviews, even non-hijabis. He strikes me as a very fair guy who's truly trying his best. But the things that he says in the context of Islam, the things that he blurts out very quickly because he can't really linger on those, are misogynistic because Islam is misogynistic. So I'm sorry to say, this excuse that this sheikh or that sheikh is misogynistic, and I don't think the commenter is using it as an excuse. That's not what I'm saying, but they would hear that, don't listen to this sheikh or this scholar. They're misogynistic. Well, what do you expect when that's what the religion really commands? That structure of hierarchy where the male is dominant over the woman is literally spelled out in the verses. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But it's good to recognize that all these scholars are misogynistic because that gets you thinking, hopefully. All right, Ayman, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. How's it going, Ayman?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for
Good.
asking.
I guess I'll start by sharing a little bit about my background. I was born in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi in particular, to Palestinian parents. In a generally liberal household, I would see my mom pray every day. My dad would never be praying. He'd just take me to Jummah prayer, Friday prayer every Friday. I did used to be taken to tahfiz, like school or Quran classes in the masjid after school every day as well when I was younger. but it wasn't something that was like really toxic in my life as a child. It wasn't until we immigrated to Canada that my parents became really, really conservative. And I think it was just like out of fear of losing our identities or our culture when we were young. And we moved to a city that had a pretty small population, and there was just like a tiny amount of Muslims in the community, and they were just putting together like an Islamic school to get it started. And it was just like grades up to grade 3. It was like for like just the beginning of the Islamic school in Canada, in the city. And my parents were involved in that, and so my younger siblings were able to go there, but I wasn't old enough to go there, so I went to public school, thankfully. But I did witness like my parents sort of adhere to religion and faith really, really strongly, and it just became really a strong part of my life. I don't know when I quote unquote left Islam. It's kind of just been like a progression of seeing things more clearly with time, and consuming content like yours and others like yourself. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I guess I guess this is what it is. And it's really sort of, at the beginning, it's really scary to think about, because there's lots of fear there, that's indoctrinated into us, of course. But two things that I wanted to share, really two stories that I wanted to talk about. The first one was when I remember my mom wearing her hijab for the first time. This was a core memory when I was around 6 years old. It was before we moved to Canada. And I think my dad like either watched a show or heard a sermon or something from some sheikh, because when he got home, we were going out that night to like meet with other like family friends, and my dad told my mom, "You are not leaving this house without covering your hair." And I witnessed this full-blown argument between my parents, and my mom just like being so distressed and crying and being upset. And I remember this so well, and she did end up wearing the hijab for us to leave that evening to go out. I don't remember the rest of the night or where we were at. I just remember that scene. And I like, now my mom is very religious, and she would never, I think she would say that she was in the wrong back then if I was to ask her about it now, and I haven't asked her about that. But I just remember seeing her upset was something that was like, this is like, that's not okay, as a child, to witness your mother go through that. And I think that really sort of played a role in my me being a little skeptical. I'm
really sorry that that you witnessed that, and that it's a core memory, like you said. Something,
because those things, like, like those things like shape us, and it makes me sad, and to remember that. And there's a part of me that kind of like wants to almost like talk to my mom about it, but I know that would not be healthy, or I don't know, maybe it would be healthy, but there's a part of me that's just kind of sad that happened that way. I know that she's very content, and I think she's very content and happy right now. I don't know. But my mom, as everybody else, is surviving just the situations that they are in. And
do you think, if sorry to interrupt your train of thought,
please.
it's just do you think if she was asked now if she chose to wear the hijab, she would say she would? She did choose it?
I think so. I don't. Yeah, interesting. I don't think my mom would share that story that way.
Well, let's ask it this way. If you asked her, or somebody asked her, especially if it's a non-Muslim asking her, are you forced to wear the hijab or do you want to wear the hijab? What would she say?
I think my mom right now would say, I want to wear the hijab right now. Like my mom is very religious. She's also become very conservative. She teaches at the Islamic school right now. You know, like I can't have a long enough conversation without her bringing in, you know, a hadith and verses from the Quran into anything that we're talking about. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what her answer would be if somebody was asking her, when you first wore the hijab, like what was it that made you wear the hijab? And you know, like even like in the, I want to say like the Western Muslim culture, like Muslims here in the West, like young women that wear the hijab amongst each other, there's always this like story behind it. Not always. A lot of the times they almost glorify it, and there's like, oh, I had this feeling about, you know, it's glorified as to I felt something really nice and peaceful, and it was just calling to me for me to wear the hijab. And they're almost like encouraging each other in their communities, which is nice for them to try and seek support when they're making such a decision. But like I know that that's not the reality in a lot of the cases.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of similar stories from the Muslim and ex-Muslim women who call in, be it that they were forced at first or they really wanted to do it because they saw how glamorous it seemed in the community. You know, everyone's talking about how amazing it is and praising those who do it. So there's more than one way to get into it without actually thinking about why am I wearing the hijab. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that story, but I hope your mother is content.
I think, thank you. I have a good I have an existing relationship with my family, which I'm grateful for, and I love the both of them. I love all of them, of course, so very much. It makes me sad that they're still very stuck. But yeah, it's I just want to share some of the realities there that exist. One of the other things that I had wrote down that I wanted to talk about and bring up, actually, just to move past that point, is there was a phase in my life where I really tried to hold on to religion, to become religious and to try and get closer to my faith, and to Islam, to really to gain the acceptance and the pride of my family, my parents, like for you know, رضا الأهل ورضا رضا الله ورضا الوالدين, you know, like for them to be I don't know what rida would mean in English.
Like content
Yeah,
with
I
you,
guess.
or happy with you, or satisfied with you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, to gain their satisfaction, to gain their approval. And I had really like tried to follow the faith very closely for a period of time, and I went on a trip for Umrah with my father to visit Mecca and Medina, and we did it during the last 10 days of Ramadan, and it was like a bonding father-son moment for us, or supposed to be that. So I really gave it my all to try and sort of go with him and be present there. And I remember just actually like really genuinely praying when I was there, because there's something so beautiful when you witness so many people repeating the same thing and being in community, like communal, and they're like masses, millions of people. There's something absolutely amazing about it. And I understand
it's
why
surreal. It's a surreal experience. I felt similarly the first time, and it's not exactly the same at all, but the first time I went to a football game, like
Right.
at a stadium. Seriously,
hear
like seeing that massive people in the same place for the same reason, but that wasn't
Yeah.
even like that serious of a reason. It was amazing enough.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
when you tie it to somewhere that's exotic to you, you know, that you're not used to seeing, somewhere all white, everything's so white and
that's
yeah, of
and
course it's amplified. Yeah.
I agree, like that that sense of team spirit, like you know, like we're all on the same team.
You
running
can't
or
start a
walking
wave
around.
though, like you do in a
Yeah,
stadium. You
no.
can't start that in Mecca.
Imagine that would look pretty cool, actually, from a bird's eye view
Or
lens.
like a wave of sujood, you know, to keep it on topic. Just, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's mesmerizing, right? Anyways, there was something really nice about that part, which, like you said, exists in other like large masses where everybody's in community with something. But I remember like really actually praying to have strength to hold on to my faith, because I felt like it was something that was just not becoming a relevant part of my life. And I was afraid of losing connection with my family. That was my biggest fear, was that I would lose any relationship that I had with my parents and my family and my siblings and my cousins and the larger family and community, because that was my entire social network, really. And that was my biggest fear. And I remember during the Tarawih prayer in Laylat al-Qadr, and I was just like trying to have this thought where I'm trying to connect with, you know, a higher being, Allah. In that moment, I really was trying to create that bond and connection and to feel something. And this was the place where I was supposed to feel that. And they were doing the dua, the supplication, out loud, before, like during the last rak'at or something. I don't remember. And there was this one moment where he was praying, and he was saying something about the protectors of the Haramain al-Sharifain, the protectors of Mecca and Medina, and that being like the Saudi government, Al Saud. And like as a Palestinian, like it was very triggering. And there was a part of me that was like, like I remember my mindset just immediately was like repulsed. It was triggered, and it was just like okay, that's gross. And I remember talking to my dad about it at the very end of the night, and he's like, you know, like they have to, almost like he was like justifying, like they have to, like they're still under that government, and that's just, you know, that's the way how government works.
How impotent is that God that like in his house, right? They're talking about politics basically, right?
Exactly.
You're not supposed to mention anyone except the Prophet and Allah and whatnot. So to use that platform to make a dua, and when you think about it, is it going to be more accepted of a dua if they're doing it on that platform? Like, why would they do that?
It was funny in a way, not funny. It was yeah. It was shocking. It was like, even though I knew, I've heard it before, I've seen it on TV when you'd watch the streams of Mecca Live, yada yada.
I was just gonna say it never really shocked me. So kudos to you. I never actually thought about that point. Like I used to hear it and I saw it a lot on these streams, and so yeah, kudos to you for noticing. Like I've become so blind to it.
I was trying really hard to like focus on myself, and all of a sudden, like you know, that comes up, and I'm just like, wait, like what? Yeah, what a, you know, what a killer that was. It was really, yeah, it was really ridiculous. And everybody,
if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when this happened?
I don't mind. No, I think I was in my early 20s. I was probably 21.
Okay, so someone's sharing that Tobanga says that I've gone through the exact same thing, Ayman, only at that time I was praying at the Kaaba during Umrah. I went through that during Hajj, not during Umrah, but I was younger than the 20s. But I was just curious, you know, when we all had that same shared moment.
Yeah, I think that's what's nice about like your platform and other ex-Muslims, as well as like Soleil and the things that they're doing, and in like with French speaking ex-Muslims, is that you're like, it's so helpful. Like I haven't been like a Muslim for a long while, but it's still, I don't realize how much I need this space where I can listen to other people talking about things that I can relate to, help me even to stitch together my own thought process, that's sometimes all over the place and just kind of never really sit and think about it, or it's grounding. So I appreciate that.
I'm glad it is, and I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
I don't know if I want to share much more, or if I have much more to share.
That's okay.
I just have maybe a question for you. How do you, one of the things that people ask me, because this was brought up with one of the other callers, about having the assumption of being Muslim when people like meet you, and even like when you know, when I talk about my parents, or like when I say I was born in a Muslim household, you know, they're just like, they just assume that I'm Muslim. And one of the things that a lot of folks out here would identify in is like, oh, like I don't believe in God, like I'm not Christian, but you know, like we go for Christmas, we go for Easter, you know, like I'm culturally connected to it, but I'm not a Christian, you know, and that's like a normalized thing. But for me to sort of say like I'm culturally Muslim, I don't even know what that means, you know, like so do you ever see that kind of happening for us, where it just becomes such a normal thing for people to just be like, yeah, you know, like, you know, Allah, you know, is not real, but you know, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have Eid, you know, we'll have, I don't know, like stuff like that.
I think it is gonna take a while, and part of it would have to do with having the others, the non-Muslims, realize that of our existence, right? So that they don't. So a lot of them are very extra considerate, and they don't want to, for example, misgender someone. In a similar way, I feel like if we get them to be aware enough of us, they're not going to just start presuming that anyone who looks or sounds like us is a Muslim. So then at least they would start asking, you know, like, okay, your name is Muhammad, but are you a Muslim? I just, you know, I hope I don't offend you, whatever the format they ask in. But it's going to be more difficult than how the Christians and the cultural Christians have it, because Christianity has been diluted in many ways. And, you know, even the Christians who do go to church aren't really digging that deep into it. And it's just not the same with Islam. I feel like Islam takes over every aspect of life, and
Really
it's,
does.
if you try to dilute it, it's almost kufr, right? Like you're really not able to do that in a way that's sustainable. I feel like, yeah, the people who are able to remain close to these rituals, like, you know, iftar and Eid and so on, if they're not forced to do it, there's going to be more and more cultural Muslims, so to speak. But there's a resistance to that within the Muslim community. Like if someone says they're a cultural Christian, like you posed it, the Christians won't come after them and say, you're not a real Christian, get the hell out of our space, this and that, right? It's more like, oh, at least they still identify as a Christian or something. But if you're a Muslim who doesn't adhere properly and you're a cultural Muslim, you're going to be scrutinized to hell for it. And it's, you know, it's, so I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's going to take a while. It's not easy for us.
Right. Because like I felt like I was for like a long time where I wouldn't really practice. I wouldn't, you know, there's days that would pass where I wouldn't even think about Islam or like prayer. And but you know, when the time would come for me to be with my parents, or to go to Eid gathering or family gathering, and you know, there's something communal that way, you know, like reading the Fatiha during a janazah or something, like those are things that I would just do. But then after actually like like leaving and realizing I'm still holding on to stuff, I started almost being triggered being in those spaces, and I actually started avoiding them. Because like you said, there's no space for the in-between almost.
I feel like at best you would get a bunch of condescendingly nice remarks about, inshallah, God's gonna, lead you someday,
Yeah,
and it's like almost pitiful,
yeah,
like looking down on you, like, oh, at least you're here, hopefully better,
yeah.
someday. So a lot of us
It's
avoid these
toxic.
spaces. It's sad because we don't want to avoid these spaces, but what other choice do you have sometimes except having to lie to be in those spaces, which it doesn't feel authentic. And I'd rather throw the whole space away than have to lie to just coexist within it. So I feel like if Muslims want that to happen, then there will be space for it, but I'm accounting for it not happening anytime soon. I think we need to find our own communities and spaces and assimilate in other ones, but just more in the one that we lost, in my opinion.
I think it's very, very well put. And I agree with what you said there. That's very true. Thank you again for your time. I don't want to take up too much of other folks' opportunity to join you on the stream. Thanks, Ala.
Thank you so much for calling, Ayman. Take care.
Right, have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Oh, I forgot to mention something to him. Ayman, if you're still watching, Reason on Faith is saying, as you're Canadian, we have a lot of ex-Muslim groups in Canada spun out of ex-Muslims of North America. Since they no longer host meetup groups, Toronto has ex-Muslims of Toronto if you're interested. So for those who are in those regions, now you know. There was a homophobic slur in the comments. There was a Muslim who kept saying, Aisha was not a child. And then as soon as the previous caller, Ayman, started talking, there's a homophobic slur. I just wanted to tell them, I said it in the comments, but I'll say it here, fuck off out of our spaces, please. It's sad to me that I almost have to expect homophobia every time I, like anything, even not related to homosexuality, we're talking about it. I'm okay with getting all these slurs directed at me, just don't direct them at anyone else on my streams. Yeah, and I want to make a dirty joke, but I'm just going to keep it clean for now. And Music Guy, thank you so much for the super chat for the kitty treats. They're more than pampered. Don't worry about the kitties anymore. Yeah. And there's a commenter who wants to join. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stick to the queue in that order. So yeah, the next person in queue is Latina Apostate. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Latina. How's it going?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Okay, well, thank you for your time and your space. And by the way, I just want to let you know that you're doing a wonderful job, because we need people like you. We need people like you to actually say the truth about what's going on in Islam. Okay, so I will start.
Thank you.
First of all, I was not born Muslim. I was a Muslim convert. So basically, I was living in an abusive household with my stepfather and my mother. And this time I was in college, right? And in college, I made a lot of Muslim friends, right? So I got kicked out of my house from my stepfather. By the way, I'm not a conflicted person or anything. He just couldn't, since he married my mother, the fact that me and my siblings exist, it bothered him. Right. So like,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you so much. So things intensified until he was like, I don't want you here. And he called us to me, and it was snowing. So, that moment I was left homeless. I had no money. I was just living in my car. I was struggling like any other college student. So the Muslims noticed that my friends saw that I was going on through some issues. And then they started talking to me. They got closer to me and say, oh, things happen, stuff like that. So they took that opportunity to talk to me about Islam and how we believe in the same God. They love Jesus. And, they were so nice to me. Like, they treat me with so much love and care that I never had in my life. They've been the nicest people I ever met in my life. And they let me move in with them. So I lived with people from the Middle East, but things were nice and pretty at the beginning, and I was very shocked about their hospitality, about how we're nice. I mean, they were able to take me to live with them. Who does that, right? And then you have me, right? So I convinced myself, or not convinced, but like I started realizing, I was like, wow, all these Muslim people want to help me out. They want to teach me Islam. They all like care about me. They all checking on me.
Hey, are you there?
Yeah. I'm
Sorry,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out after they're checking on me.
They're checking on me. They care about me. So I say, well, then they say that that's what Islam teaches.
Sorry, your voice cut out again. You said they say that's what Islam teaches. Kindness and everything.
That's what Islam. Kindness and charity, help the poor, help the needy. And then, so there you have me. I went to the mosque with them. I took Shahada. And 1 second. Okay. So I took Shahada and then I moved in with them. With time, things started intensifying more. Like I started having more rules. Like I had people watching me how I pray. I had people correcting my prayers, being in the mosque, being taken out of line because my strength of my hijab was showing. Like everyone like seeing how I dress. So like, and it started getting uncomfortable. Well, this is one thing, right? So the second thing, with time passes by, I was actually trying to do my best to do my 5 prayers, to do the khutbah prayer. I did Ramadan. I was Muslim for 4 years. I did Ramadan. I fasted. My first Ramadan, actually, I remember my friend's mother. I got an internship, right? And then she wanted to know how everything went and everything. And then I told her that my boss invited me to eat. And this is what Ramadan. I did not know the logistics of Ramadan or how Ramadan works, right? So she yelled at me in front of everyone saying, how dare you break your fast? How dare you are a servant of Allah and you disobey him? And in Ramadan, your boss is no better than Allah. I don't care if he's your boss, if he's your manager. You are a slave of Allah, and you're supposed to do what Allah says. Now you have to make up for that day. And I'm saying, I'm really sorry. Like I cried. No one saw me, but like I went and cried because it was not my intention to break my fast. It's just that I didn't want it to be rude and say, oh, I'm sorry. So, and then I got that in that same household. One of the relatives came and visited them, and they told them that I converted to Islam. And the guy, because he was her niece or something like that, her husband said, why you don't wear hijab yet? My mom's friend answers really quick, oh, it's because she's not strong enough. So I broke out crying, but not in front of them, of course, like later, because I was like, how can she say that I'm not strong enough for wearing hijab, So these things added up, and with time, I actually started reading the Quran and the Hadith. And in the Quran say that unbelievers are like animals, right? And it also said that that a Muslim man can marry 4 women, but then Muhammad had 11 wives. So I asked, okay, so this is contradicting, because if Muhammad is regarded as the best man or the best moral example in Islam, why would he have 11 wives, right? So they say, oh no, whenever they went to battlefields, Muhammad actually married them so he can take care of them, so they would not end up homeless. I said, this didn't make sense for me. Or the fact that like they can marry also sex slaves. The same argument was given to me, and also when I asked why Muhammad married Aisha, they said, oh, the girls. She was 9 years old and he was 56. I got this argument saying that girls from the desert were maturing faster than at this age because of the heat of the desert. So I'm like, what? So the heat, the environmental conditions makes a woman look older than she is?
And that says nothing about her mental state either, but I'm sorry if you don't mind me asking. You don't have to give specifics, but do you live in a hot region of the world?
I live in America in the Southwest, so it's okay. It's humid and hot. The weather is very bipolar. Let's just say that.
Have you met anyone like from a hotter area down lower south in North America? And if yes, do you notice that they're more physically mature all of a sudden?
No, never.
That's not a trend, huh?
Yeah, it's not a trend. It is not something that I've seen. So, the start, as I was reading more and more, I was thinking more, a lot of more questions start in my mind.
By the way, your voice is a little far away from the mic. Can you come a little closer?
Yeah. Now, can you hear me?
A bit better now, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And how about now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So, like I was saying.
Oh, she got muted.
Now, can you hear me better?
Yeah,
Okay,
better.
so like I was saying.
Oh, you got muted again.
Are you there?
Now I can hear you fine, yeah.
Okay. So like as I was digging and digging more, I had more questions. And as for instance, like when I converted, they told me I asked, because when you pray Al-Fatiha and everything, it has to be recited in Arabic, right? And I asked, do I need to read Arabic and learn Arabic for me in order to pray? And they say, no, you just have to have your faith, right? But whenever I start questioning, they told me, oh, you don't know Arabic, you need to understand Arabic. So I'm like, how is it that when you convert, you don't have to learn Arabic, but when you criticize or you want to question it, you must know Arabic? This also, like, I don't know, raised a red flag on my head.
Right? It's like you agreed to the terms and conditions without reading them. And then when you try to ask questions, they tell you you don't know how to read the terms and conditions. So just remain on your membership or whatever it may be.
Exactly. So that's and it's my fault, especially my fault, because I didn't inform myself well enough. I didn't.
Don't blame yourself too hard. Like that's how it is with almost all converts. Like it's not your fault, especially that you were in a vulnerable spot and they were helping you out. It's unfortunately how a lot of conversions happen, that even to other religions, people are at their lowest and they need help, and that's why you didn't really dig into the religion in Arabic before joining. So don't blame yourself, please. Are you there? You're muted again.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for being understandable about this. Thank you for, it's sometimes, I ask myself a lot of questions. Why like, if I, like, how could I fall into this? So anyway, like, things were intensifying, like, more questions. And then I went to speak with imams. I asked sheikhs, I asked my friends, and they were all giving me very bizarre answers. Like, for example, there's something in the Quran that says, like, do not leave, go eat in the house of the prophet and then leave and don't bother him. I'm like, okay, how is this going to help me in my life spiritually? Like, why is this verse in here? Like, how can I apply this in my life, right?
Well, there's an Islamic answer to that, of course, which is, now you know not to be rude and to leave houses and don't stay there for too long. As if, yeah, seriously, they say that with a straight face.
So anyway, so I moved out, like, thank God I moved out of the house. But I still have Muslim friends and everything like that. I got married to Muslim Arab, and it got to the point that, like I said, I kept on reading, and it got, like, there was not a time that I periodically, like, you can say, left. It's just there was a time that I say, okay, enough is enough. I cannot keep convincing on myself that this is from God, because to me, I don't accept this morally, like, how can I, like, for example, there's one, I think it's in the hadith that says that the angels will come and curse at you if you don't have sex with your husband. So to me, that's like, okay, sounds like manipulation.
It is.
Like,
it is.
It sounds like manipulations. Like, so it was a time that I said, okay, enough is enough. I didn't tell my husband I keep it to myself for a few months. Then I took, and also I revert to Christianity. I know you guys most of you guys are atheists, so I'm not gonna go into that. I respect you. So anyway, I come back to Christianity because I'm not gonna go into that. But the point is that and then I kept it to myself. And when it came to a time that I was like, okay, I have to be honest with my husband and tell him. So I decided to be like, hey, you know what? I love you. I care about you. You're my life, but I don't longer align with Islam. Like, I'm sorry. So he got very, very mad. And the next day he took me to the Imam Tahrir wedding. And, they tried to convince me to stay, that all the people that I was living there.
Sorry, he took you to the Imam, what for?
Because because apparently he wanted me to show, he wanted to see what was going on with me, why I left Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the Imam started sugarcoating me things, started telling me that seems like they were trying to convince me to stay, but I had already my final decision. And then at the end of the Imam tells him that if I leave Islam, it will be his fault. So, I mean, he was
your husband's fault.
Yes.
How did he rationalize that your husband is letting you leave Islam?
No. Like, he told him, my husband told him, but at the end, when the conversation ended, he said, "It will be your fault if you leave Islam." Not sure why.
I'm confused. Your husband said to the Imam, if she leaves Islam, it's your fault?
The Imam told my husband. The Imam told my husband that if I leave Islam, it would be his fault, my husband's fault.
Why is that? Did he explain?
No, he didn't explain. He just said that to him. And I mean, I still want to know. But to me, honestly, like, it's been very hard because till this day, no one knows I left Islam, only my husband. And, I was thinking my husband was going to leave me. I was thinking that, but, he stayed with me, and I respect him for that. And I'm glad that he decided to stick with me, even though I don't longer identify myself with Muslim. With me, Muslim, is just that I just feel very disappointed because whatever Islam was shown to me at the beginning, it does not match with what I read. And then the same thing that it's not the same. They translate it wrong. You need to know Arabic. So if the translation is wrong, like, I read it in Spanish and I read it in English, why would you even bother to translate the Quran? Right? If it's wrong, why? Right?
Like, yeah. Next time someone says that, I want to show them the Quran and be like, okay, here's some highlight, like some whiteout fluid. Let me know what needs to be corrected and how, and then we'll take it to the publishing company and have them correct it. Like, why are we just dismissing it there? But I'm glad you're able to see through that.
So yes, and it's been hard, because like, I tried to give him the explanation. Like, for example, I read before that in Quran it says that the people that they by conviction decide to reject Islam and not accept it as religion, they're destined for hell. Like, if you know Islam and you're aware of it, but you don't accept it, you're destined for hellfire. So I asked him, I was like, so are you aware of this, right? And are you okay with me, your wife, going to hell? And he just he didn't even give me a proper answer. Like, this is just of the things that baffle me. This is just one of the things that baffle me, and I wish like I have someone to discuss these things with, but happened that, as I said, I don't have friends that are ex-Muslim. I don't have, all my friends are Muslim. No one knows. I don't have a relationship with my family. So it's like a bunch of things going in my head. And sometimes I think, and I'm like, am I crazy? Or like, I question myself over and over and over about this. But yes, that was my experience.
I'm so sorry for all the things that happened to you, and I'm sorry that you feel alone. And I'm glad that you were able to come across places where you find other ex-Muslims to know that you're not crazy. We all need these reassurances. And just don't feel bad if you keep having these recurring thoughts of questioning yourself or feeling that, you know, fear, uncertainty. It's okay to need reassurance. It's okay.
And I appreciate you guys, because you guys do an amazing job, because like I said, like the imams, and I also want to say another thing. One imam says another thing, and then another imam says another thing, right? Like there's another, like one thing, for example, like I have a friend that his brother is gay, and my friend was telling me that, oh, his parents don't know what they're gonna do, because in Islam you cannot inherit to a kufar or a person like that, because I don't think he's even Muslim. And he said that they asked many sheikhs, many imams about it. Some say that yes, you can inherit your son, and others say that no, you cannot, because he left Islam. So it's how can you not leave inheritance to your own son just because, like, it's your own son? How are you gonna leave it in the street? You know, how you're not gonna care? How can a religion tell you not to care about your own blood? You know,
it's a very exclusive religion, unfortunately. It's not inclusive at all. It's the opposite. Yeah.
So I mean, this is these kind of things, like I said, and it comes like it's about questioning, and I'm glad that I start questioning myself, because there's like people that just get into this convert, and they just let they carry themselves away with what other people tell them. But I'm not that kind of person that likes to follow like what people tells them. No, like I think about it, and you know, like I still think about it and analyze it. And for example, when I had one friend that told me that Muhammad was the favorite prophet of God, after I read these things, and in my head I was like, okay, what? It's kind of like my head went into a like an error in an error, right? So for me, I don't know, like if you think that he's the most perfect person, and you don't see, like, you don't read all of this, I mean, it's kind of like they've been either brainwashed, or I don't know what it is. But as like I said, morally, I can no longer accept these things, you know.
I'm glad that you've reached that point and you didn't get stuck in the questioning yourself and, you know, not knowing who to talk to about this kind of thing in that phase. And I'm sorry again that you went through this, and I'm happy that you're able to share your story with us for those who are in that position, you know.
And again, I wanted to say thank you again for everything you guys do. Also, people like you, David Wood, Apostate Prophet, Islam Critique, help me like put the pieces of the puzzle together, like, and help me develop, like, questioning more and more and more. And you guys doing an amazing job. And thank you again. Keep going. And I wish you success and in your channel.
Thank you so much for the kind words, and take care, Latina. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
All right. Thank you again, Latina, for sharing with us. I'll read a few comments before I go to the next caller. And we have 5 callers left. I'll try to take everybody. I'll do my best. Thank you, Hassan Adwan, saying loving this live stream. I'm glad everyone's enjoying it. Seems like a nice live chat and a nice live stream. So EMT team was saying, wow, this mother is insane. That's referring to the mother who was unfortunately berating the caller indirectly or directly, and saying things like she's weak and that's why she's not wearing the hijab. You would be shocked to realize how this is not an insane mother. She could be normal in every other way, a normal woman in every other way, but she behaves like this when it comes to the context of religion. And people need to realize these are not isolated cases. These are just very common sentiments in Muslim communities. Unfortunately, this kind of guilting and shaming is just seen as a good thing almost. It's community policing, but in a good way. You know, a means to an end, to make people more pious so that they don't go to hell. It's for their own good. This is so usual and normal, unfortunately. So I wanted to highlight that it's not just a case of insanity. This is a systemic problem. And Robert says, I'm sorry I didn't get to that question earlier. Latina, have you seen the Vice documentary, Why Latinos Are Converting to Islam? If so, what are your thoughts? Well, if she's in the live chat, I hope she can answer that. And okay, so this is said as a joke, right? The sheikhs tell the story as a fun story, which is horrific. A man that once converted, and they told him, we need to circumcise you now, brother. And he was like, no, I'm out. I'm leaving Islam. And then they were like, well, now we have to cut your head off. I've heard a version of that joke, so-called joke about drinking. Someone, I saw it being told by a sheikh. Someone wanted to cure his drinking problem, and a Muslim friend said, I have the cure to your drinking problem. Just join Islam. He joined Islam, and then he said, how is this going to help my drinking problem? And he said, if you drink, we're going to punish you. I don't remember if it was we're going to lash you or kill you or something. And he's like, oh, okay, then I want to leave. And they're like, you can't. We're going to punish you. So the fact that it's said as a joke is pretty sad, but that'll give you an idea of the mentality that a lot of us grew up in. So it's a miracle that we came out of it. That's the real miracle. Holy Humanist, thank you very much for the super chat, saying, loving these call-ins, hearing so many people dare to question. Thank you, Ala-Ad-Din, for doing this important work. I appreciate the kind words. And so in the previous caller's story, the Imam was telling the husband about his convert wife, if she leaves Islam, it'll be your fault. And people have been theorizing why that is. She did not know why that is. I have my own theory, but I wanted to ask her. She doesn't know, but I'm going to read a couple of comments about that. So Doorknob Head says, sounds like an invitation from the Imam to the husband to do anything, beating, etc., to keep her a prisoner of Islam. I don't know if that was directly what he was saying, but keep in mind that it can be very easily interpreted that way, because what she is doing there is disobedience to the husband and to God by leaving Islam, or announcing her kufr, or not wanting to wear a hijab, or not want to obey her husband about when exactly she can leave the house. Because if he says you can't leave the house till you become Muslim, or till you get rid of these questions, that is Islamically allowed, and her disobedience does result in punishment if he chooses to apply that verse. So whether the Imam intended to dog whistle him and tell him you need to do everything you can to make sure that your wife doesn't leave, or whether or not, it's still a very valid interpretation according to the scripture that many do take the license to understand and to use, unfortunately. And another reason is women, that's my speculation, are seen as, it's not really a speculation, women are seen as infantilized. They're secondary to the husband, and they're the responsibility of the husband who's dominant over them and providing for them and so on. Then they have the authority to discipline them and teach them. And who better to teach us about that than Muhammad himself, who married a 6-year-old, and then even if he waited 3 years of not grooming her, which he was grooming her, and then consummated at 9, he was raising a young girl as a wife. He actually had another woman, Sauda, as a babysitter, basically, and the housekeeper, because his wife was too young. She was a little child. He raised her. And that's how they view women. They're younger, they're submissive, they're to be raised and taught just for their own good, right? Taught, advise her. And I think that's what the Imam was reminding him of. Like, this is your responsibility. You're responsible for your household, your women, your children, and so on. So, yeah. This is also another theory that the Imam said that's because she's a convert. She wants to leave Islam after she married him, so he's trying to guilt the husband to convince her to stay. There's a lot of guilt going on. And Atta says, I had a similar problem with my ex, and I was given so much power over her when we went to the local Imam. So that's a man admitting that. So thank you for sharing that perspective. It's unfortunate, and he was a good man, and I'm guessing he didn't want to use that license, but many men would want to use that license, and they might even be good men who intend to do good, but it's just how their mind works. Yeah, and just a reminder, it's constant guilt tripping, unfortunately. So I am going to take the next caller. Who is the next caller? That would be Mike. All right, so Mike, I am going to take you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Hi, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so first of all, like I'm really nervous right now, so I'm gonna have like a little bit of trouble organizing my thoughts. I
That's
did
okay.
actually like for the past like 10 minutes or so, I've been like typing my thoughts out. I'm trying to organize them because like I want to speak about the hopelessness and the self-hatred in Islam, but at the same time, I want to like go through my life and how I like came to this realization that maybe like my religion really isn't that true after all. Like they
Okay.
always say, like Islam is the real religion, it's the true one, it's justice, and it's really like baffling when you think about it. Like I just happened to be born in this like country in this part of the world, and all of a sudden, this like religion is like the real one. Like everyone who's born into a religion thinks like their religion is the one. And it's funny when you think about it, but all this time, like my life, I actually like thought like we were the ones who were right, and everyone else was like the evildoers, the kuffar, the dirty people. I never actually had that thought, but my family does look at like the non-believers in a way like that, and kind of makes me like cringe. But still. So let me go through my notes because I was just talking offhand right now. I
Sure.
actually like I've been waiting for the stream for the past 2 days. I put a reminder for it. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, thank you for setting a reminder and showing up, and sitting
you're
through 2 hours to get to talk. So, yeah.
it's all right. So first thing I'm gonna talk about like how I was raised up. Um, I'm born like in Kuwait. I'm not sure if I should even say this like for my own sake, but screw it, right? Might as well.
You'll be fine. Your
So
name is Mike. Nobody knows who you are,
yeah,
hopefully. Yeah.
it's just an abbreviation, honestly. You can flip this a little bit and see my real name, but anyway.
You don't want, you should now you can talk. Just stop talking. You don't have to say that
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
But
Okay. So anyway, I was like brought up as like a normal Muslim, like this devout Muslim who never dares question his faith, and everyone around me is just like that. Um, like everyone's like very strict in the rules, and like being like a non-believer is something I thought was ridiculous. Like I would never come this side. Like there was no way it was gonna happen. But at the same time, like when I was growing up, like I spent a lot of time on the internet and watching anime, playing games and all that. And like even though I'm native Arabic, like I can fool people like with my English. Sorry, I'm like bragging all of a sudden. Anyway, um, so like my thoughts on religion when I was growing up was I
by the
really
way,
did think
not to
about
burst your bubble, but I can hear a tiny bit of Khaliji in your English. So,
things.
just gotta
That
humble
really
you a
helps.
little bit.
Yeah, it's probably because of the nervousness.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's all right. Um, so my thoughts like growing up on the religion is I didn't actually think about it, you know. Like I consider myself a little bit of a hypocritical Muslim because I do these things that like really devout Muslims don't do, like listening to music and all. And even though I do these things all the time, I still feel really guilty about them. I used to have like ridiculous anxiety about music in particular, and one of my friends, like a fellow Muslim as well, told me like if I listen to music, like I'm gonna have like lava poured into my ears or something like that, and I was terrified. Like, are you serious? Is this my punishment? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, from that, like, I started questioning why is music even like a bad thing to begin with? Like, I wasn't hurting anyone, and if I was gonna justify it, maybe like you shouldn't listen to the music that promotes sex or something. Like, that was the idea I had. Like, if I was gonna put it in the Muslims' viewpoint. But that wasn't the reason actually. Like they just said music is haram and like there's nothing to explain it. Like I always found the reasonings for stuff being forbidden to be ridiculous. Um, it was probably the only reason I'm here right now is because like I kept having this doubt in the back of my head. So anyway, like when I was like in high school and middle school, growing up and having like the Islamic, like studying Islam at school, I never actually like cared about the prophet stories and all that stuff. I was like, just memorize this and get this out of the way. Like I never really cared. Like some people like they say, oh no, it's like the prophet. You should actually love him. You should care. But how am I supposed to love someone I've never met? And like the way you hear about the prophet is always it's almost like Superman, you know, it's always like these ridiculous stories and he doesn't do anything wrong, he doesn't make any mistakes. And that's like when you're like, I am because I wasn't reading into stuff, so I thought he was like this perfect person. But it was really just my ignorance, because now that I've like become an apostate, sort of, like when I read the lines and see the hadiths, like, this is ridiculous. How was I actually believing in this? Like all my life has been a lie. So like moving to my next point, like I never felt like I loved God. And even when I read the Quran, like in Jummah, before Jummah prayers, or when I hear the Quran being played around in the house, because my family is very religious, they play it everywhere. I never actually felt any warmth coming from the like verses. It's like every few sentences there's a threat like mixed in. It's like the non-believers will melt in hell forever, and like the same variation of this like is said like every other verse is like that. So I couldn't really like love God, even though people say you should love God, because it's God after all. But like many people, I just lied to myself. I thought I loved God, but I really didn't feel anything towards God. Um,
Or the
when I
prophet,
pray,
certainly, right?
yeah,
Or the
the
prophet.
prophet's the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I thought of him like as an idol, but to be honest, I was just self-inserting my image of a perfect person onto him. I didn't actually know him and what he did in his life. Had I known it back then, I probably wouldn't have been a Muslim that much longer. But anyway, um, so yeah, when I pray, like, because like I have no spirituality with Islam, so when I pray, I'm like just reciting stuff without thinking. I'm just saying stuff and getting the motions done. I wasn't really thinking that hard about anything. I was just saying the shortest verses I could remember and then just getting it over with. And this is one thing like my father and mother, like they keep telling me I should read the Quran. I should like read long verses in the prayers, and I just couldn't care. Like I couldn't care less. I can't bring myself to do it because I don't feel any connection after all. Like how am I supposed to force myself to like put all that effort into it? I was practically just lazy with my prayers anyway. Um, so anyhow, like I grew to be like a little bit envious of Christians, because like when I see Christians online or like in general, I feel like they love their religion or they feel more spiritual than Muslims. Like it feels like Muslims like they're like mindlessly just, afraid of the hell that awaits if they dare question anything. And I don't know much about Christianity, to be honest, so I can't really say much else. But I just like envied some people. I felt like there was love in their religion, which wasn't found in mine. And like I had this anxiety growing up that, even as a Muslim, I wasn't guaranteed to go to heaven anyway. So I felt afraid. And I did like some sins, as I said, but I don't consider them to be like this huge sin. But I still felt like I was the worst person in the world. And this is the thing with Islam, it makes you like very hateful towards yourself. You feel guilty even though like what you're doing is objectively there's nothing wrong with it. Like you're just living life like every other person. You just haven't happened to be born in this side of the planet.
Mhm.
And so
Wait,
like
there's before you go on,
yeah, sure.
there's I'm sure multiple people will keep saying this kind of thing, but got Jasmine saying same BS, different rapping, talking about Christianity.
Yeah.
And Ghazi's comment is what caught my eye. He says, "I used to feel things in church, but it was nothing compared to what I felt in a metal concert." So
I wish I was there. I like music. I wish I could go to a concert, but
Mhm.
maybe one time.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you don't have that as much guilt, I hope, anymore as you
Yeah,
used to as a Muslim. Yeah.
thank you. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people feel guilty. Or maybe the
It's
majority of
built
them.
on guilt, really, because like you said, even as a Muslim, you have no guarantee of heaven, and we're often
Yeah,
reminded, like, don't be lazy. You have to keep on top of your worship and everything,
yeah.
because you could go to hell too. Even you could go to hell. Like it was always reminded to us. So yeah, it's okay that it might take some people a while to get over that guilt.
Actually, there's a contradiction here that I like had in my mind all this time is when they say like God is all merciful and at the same time God will punish the evildoers forever. Like this thing stuck out to me a lot, and shout out to Hassan Radwan. Like I really like enjoyed his videos on hell and how he like I felt like he expressed it perfectly. Like how is this like a just God? Like you call yourself the all merciful, but you like punish people like this in inhumane ways just because they didn't believe in you. And it's not like they're bad people either, just because they don't believe. And we can't really choose what we believe in anyway. Like, it's just like even if you lie to yourself, I think that's an insult to God Himself. If you pretend you love Him when you don't, or like you pretend you believe in Him when you don't.
Well, yeah, I don't think that pretending will ever turn into genuine love or faith. So
Yeah.
I've always said the same thing. Like, who am I fooling? Like, God knows that I'm just doing this, not even believing that He's watching. It's just doing it just in case. Kind of, it's offensive, just in case.
Yeah. The thing with the guilt also and anxiety, like they always tell you to like be mindful that God is watching you, and I think this planted like anxiety inside of me, like when I do stuff that I think is bad. Even like I'm not aware of it, but I now that I think about it, I think like every time I did something I considered like prohibited, I felt very anxious, like God's watching me, and what will I do like on the day of resurrection and all that. Um, so another thing like growing up is like how my family relates to religion. And my family is very religious, as I said, but I think they're a little bit on the extreme side because they take that like jinn, evil eye thing a little bit too far to a point of like it's ridiculous. Like any bad thing that happens to them, suddenly it's the work of the devil, it's the work of the evil eye. It's like everyone is coming after them. Like actually, no one cares. Everyone's just living their lives. But because you have this idea that evil eye exists, so whenever something bad, you just automatically like blame someone for it. And this kind of blaming thing happens every day right now. Like I can never see them take responsibility for anything they do or happens to them. It's always someone else or something else that's like the problem. And same thing with Jin, like I never believed in ghosts and I found that idea a little bit ridiculous. And my family loves to talk about that. Anyway, like another point is how like there's like this hatred towards non-Muslims, and I saw this in my family somehow. Like when COVID first happened, they were like saying, "Oh, they deserve this. They're the kuffars," and all of a sudden it came to our countries. Now what?
It's a test now. It's a test.
Yeah, now it's a test.
Or sadly enough, there's also the mentality that we deserve it. It's because of corruption in our morals and
Yeah.
stuff. God is punishing us.
They said that, yeah. They always talk about Saudi Arabia when they say this. Like, look at Saudi Arabia, they're going downhill. Now we're all getting punished for it. Like, if Saudi Arabia goes down, no one is left to protect this Islam. And that's the narrative that they have going. Like, it's almost funny, but I was really depressed when I heard this at first because like my family talks a lot about like the end times are coming and Judgment Day and all that. So like I got really depressed over the years. Every time like something bad happens in the world, like my mom always goes like, "Yeah, this is the end of the world anyway. It's coming, and these are the prophecies." And I used to take the prophecies very seriously, but after watching a few videos, I realized like half of them are actually like that don't make any sense. They're like very vague, and some of them already happened like when the prophet said this like little boy is gonna die, and when he dies the hour will come, and he probably died. I mean, like he's not gonna live forever, so
You know what they said is the prophet meant the people who are listening to me, your death is going to happen before this kid dies or something like that, which is so stupid. Like, what are you even talking about? Yeah, it's a child. We're probably going to die sooner. Wow. Like,
how convenient. It's a child that's
yeah.
that's probably gonna outlive them all, so nobody's
Unless
gonna
we
see
get,
it.
killed in a war or something, but who cares? Like, what is this even? What kind of prophecy is this? And
Yeah.
we've never really linked like prophecies to, therefore my God is right. Like
Mm.
this, I don't know why we even let them take the conversation that far. even if someone is very good at prophecies, right, and presuming that
Mm.
he's spot on with all of his prophecies, it doesn't logically follow. Therefore, his definition of God
Yeah,
is
yeah,
true. He
yeah.
could
He
have
could just
some
be like,
method of
yeah,
like seeing into the future or something,
yeah,
but the least we would say is we don't know how he's figuring this stuff out. I mean,
yeah.
the most we would say. But I just wanted to pause you for a second and have you
Sure.
think about um, what you mentioned, and I never really saw it that way till I was out of it. Your mother or your family always bringing up it's the end of the world, it's this
Mm.
sign, it's that sign, these people deserve it. That's such a hostile environment to grow up in.
Yeah.
And it seems to us like it's just something you deal with. Like that's just how, religion, your religion gonna religion. But there are a lot of people who grow up in environments nothing like that. This is really
Mm.
damaging to one's mental health. And
Yeah.
like for a long time I didn't acknowledge that there's this baseline level of insanity that we all had to put up with. And in my mind I was always thinking, oh no, I had nothing like I had nothing of what these people are complaining about.
Mm.
I had it easy, things like that. It wasn't until I paused and I was thinking, wait, this is not normal, like to grow up in this kind of environment. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want you to acknowledge that internally in case you ever have this anxiety and fear. Remember, it might be linked to some of this, what you grew up with, and you need to address it, not just to blame someone or something.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Sure, sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, like the mental stuff that I have to go through now because of this religion. And like I don't want to blame the religion entirely because, like indoctrination and all. Like I can't blame my parents, for example, because just like me, they were born to believe in this. It's just like some people like they question things more. And I think like my like sort of like suffering over the years probably led me to doubt things more than the average Muslim. And that's like how I came here. Because if I was just living in happy and easy life, I probably wouldn't have, thought that hard about the religion being right or wrong. But because like I had nothing to live for at one point, like because of all this like prophecy talk my family does, sometimes I just lay down on bed and just on many times I like do that. I pray to God that he just take my life right there because, if the future was gonna end in a few years, why would I live to see it, I'd rather die right now. And that happened multiple times. I was really like in despair at that point. I knew like I talked about this with my friends several times and they said, "Yeah, like your family's messed up, man, and like this is not normal." But even if you tell me this is not normal, like this is all I know. So I can't really like acknowledge this internally so easily, because like I have no reference like of a healthy environment to live in. I was like this depression in my house is just ridiculous. And one of the things I really want to do is like move out of the house, which is like really difficult right now. Honestly, I can't even begin thinking about the process. Especially like my family questions everything. If I do something, they're gonna say, "Why you're gonna do this? You're gonna leave us," and make me like feel guilty for no reason. But yeah, anyway,
I'm really
another
sorry about
yeah,
all that, and I just
uh,
want to remind you,
yeah,
you've taken steps, even though you can't move out right now. Just
mm,
this internal struggle is alleviated more now that
yeah,
you've got reached a
yeah, yeah. I
conclusion.
seriously, I feel a lot better right now.
Hmm.
Like a few weeks ago, I was like very like I felt like I was in a bad spot. And ironically, like the first day of Ramadan is the day I like something's wrong about this. Right on the first day of Ramadan, where have the devils gone? They're locked up, I think. Well, they're not locked up. I mean, I apostated on the first day.
Because the devil's been inside you all along, is what they're gonna say.
Well, maybe that's how I saw it. I mean, I saw myself like I'm an evil person. Like I did these things. I wasn't really doing anything bad, but like Islam does this to people. Like you
Hmm.
see yourself evil and bad. So I'm gonna move along because I don't want to like sit on one topic for too long.
Hmm.
Another thing like grew up and thinking about.
Oh, just want to remind you,
Ah,
I'm gonna take the next caller after you tell me what's on your mind about this other topic. But yeah, just want to remind you that.
oh yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like go over it quickly now. Another thing is like the scholars and the imams are like very like I don't know what the word is, nihilistic maybe, I don't know.
Nihilistic? Yeah.
Maybe like when you go to the Juma prayer and all, like every time they talk, it's all depressing, angry talk about like evil and like bad things happening and bad people. Like the imams, they never talk in this like happy tone, in this like light-hearted tone. It's always like this fear-mongering spirit they got going. And every time I went
I
to the
mean,
prayer,
I've heard some happy tones, but they're also kind of like weird happy. But anyway, you could get back to that.
yeah, it doesn't really come to my mind, but that's the impression I have. Like it's all bad and evil. Anyway, so moving on from that, I'll talk about like the first thing that made me like doubt my religion very much is like being on the internet for so long. Like I get the usual habits that people like me do. Like you want to get into art, you want to get into music. Well, I think music is pretty popular as well as arts. Anyway, like when I was in high school, I was like gonna get into drawing, and I was really excited about it. Like I really got all these books going, and I was gonna like practice and all. And like one day, my brother like saw my drawings, and like he took it to my mother, and my mother's like told me, "You shouldn't be doing this. It's prohibited, and like stop right now." And I was really angry at the time because like why is drawing like bad? Why can't I draw anything? And I went like even to the most like Islam teacher on school. I went and asked him this question, and his answer was ridiculous. He told me you shouldn't question anything, you should just accept it and move on. And like this answer to this day, I think this thing just never left me. I felt frustrated for a long time after that. I was like, why can't I question? And I'm not satisfied with these answers you people are giving me about things being prohibited. Like the same thing I said about music is the same thing with art. Like things are not necessarily bad or evil, but all of a sudden I'm gonna be punished very gravely because of them. In arts drawings case, like they tell me like, okay, don't draw people, go draw plants. Well, I don't want to draw plants. I want to draw people, but I can't draw anything. I don't want to like draw like I don't know, like boring stuff. But anyway, like I also saw this like I don't know if it was a verse or a hadith, but something about like the picture makers being like the people who are going to be most severely punished in the day of judgment. And that one really struck me weirdly. Like, why is it
Yeah.
that like I
You
draw
got murder, you got serial murder, and then you got picture making.
yeah. That's exactly what I thought. Like, how are all these people like murdering, robbing, and all that stuff? Suddenly, I'm worse than all of them. Like, seriously?
You know what's comforting is realizing how he was improvising these laws as he went. So he'd be like, "Oh, this gives you 10 points. This gives you 1,000 points for Gryffindor. This is the worst. This is the best." He's just making it up. Like if you were to make a hierarchy, like put a book of how the point system is calculated, you would go insane. I don't even know if that exists, but someone should work on that. Figure out the point system.
Yeah, it's almost like a video game, honestly. Like people do these things just for like points. They don't want to lose points. They want to get points, and suddenly, like in Ramadan, you get a multiplier on your points.
It's like a combo. Yeah, exactly.
You go to like Hajj, and all of a sudden you can reset your character, and all these get wiped out like the negative points.
Here's a save point right here. You can start over.
Yeah. But there's also this like anxiety-inducing thing, like you could do one wrong thing, and all of a sudden you're doomed like to go to hell, and you don't know what that thing could be like. Like the story they often tell about like a woman that left a cat starving to death, and all of a sudden she's in hell because of it. I mean, I'm not gonna starve anyone to death, but like you get what I'm saying. Like it can be anything. It can be.
It's very
like,
arbitrary. Yeah.
Also, like one thing that struck me weird was like the Prophet when he died, he didn't think about like making the Quran a book. And that kind of like made me think, like, did the Prophet actually did not care about the religion lasting any longer after he died because he got what he wanted, like like the only people that really made the Quran happen were like the Sahabas after him and all the other like I don't remember their names, honestly. I don't care. But
I don't think Muhammad actually well, obviously he's not a prophet, so like he's not actually talking to God. Maybe in his mind he thought that the world is about to end soon, and he really didn't think that far ahead. I don't know if he would have imagined that 1400 years later I'm talking to you through a camera over, you know, the other side of the world, and
Yeah.
100 people are watching just this moment. Like, this is more than he usually preached to, you know, in the beginning of his life.
Yeah.
It would blow his mind. So he's just a simple man without a long-term plan, as people think. I really don't think he
Yeah.
had that
Yeah.
long-term of a plan, but yeah.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is, like, all the Muslims, or most of the Muslims growing up, they don't see this. Like, they see this, like, I don't know, like, exaggerated, like, figure of Muhammad. Like, the thing, like, pisses me off a lot is how, like, every time Muhammad's name gets mentioned, you say peace be upon him, even though Allah's name, like, gets said a lot of times and no one says anything after that. Like, do we worship the prophet or do we worship God now? I don't know. Like, seriously, there's, like, this weird thing going on in Islam.
Yeah.
And yeah, like,
Well, I have to move on to the next caller.
yeah, sure,
So
sure,
just,
sure.
yeah.
I think I'm satisfied with what I said.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm glad you called in. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Wish you the best with your family.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, I'll read a couple of comments, well, more than a couple, and then I'll get to the next caller, which I believe is Bilal. So let me read a couple of comments. Atta says, Islamic point system is like, whose line is it anyway, where points don't matter? I made that same exact joke yesterday. Except Jasmine didn't get the reference because she did not watch that show. Let me read some of the comments. Okay, so, I forgot to ask Mike. I hope he writes in the chat the answers. Happy Camper, thanks for the super chat, is asking, have you met ex-Muslim friends? Curious about Kuwait. Yeah, you can answer that in the live stream. Thanks, Happy Camper. And how did you discover my channel? I forgot to ask you that as well. Was it, you know, YouTube? Was it somebody else? Yeah. And Jasmine didn't like being called out, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna do it. Hassan Adwan says, for sure, Muhammad thought the world would end soon. All of the prophets did. Jesus thought the kingdom of God was imminent. When it didn't come, Christians had to revise things. I'm going to take your word for that. Because I'm not knowledgeable enough on Christianity, but yeah, I really don't think those prophets believed that there was going to be a millennia plus, you know, before the day of so-called judgment. And there were a bunch of people saying, I also didn't feel much. Like, I was raised and born Muslim, but I didn't feel much faith. And some people feel guilty for that. And I hope you realize that, you know, you shouldn't feel guilty about that if you do. But yeah, I'm glad that people are sharing that tidbit. Freedom Forever says, I'm really enjoying watching this live stream. Thank you. We have a few more callers, so don't go anywhere if you're still here. Let's see what else. Jasmine was saying, the abuse, the haram, the shame, the guilt. We just know that we're never going to have a normal life. I disagree. Because that's just, it's discouraging and it's grim. I don't think we're ever, or for most people, we're not going to get to a point in our mentality and our lives, a point of stability, or you know, the same exact mentality as someone in different upbringing that never went through these experiences. But it doesn't mean we're not going to come very, very close, because it's impossible for us to erase our memories and start over. But I think we can get to a point where we can be happy, and it's less noticeable, if unnoticeable, of a memory at all. That's my opinion. So I have no problem disagreeing with Jasmine. Shrifi saying, F it, blame your parents, blame the religion. I think the caller, I agree with the caller. I don't know if I can pin blame on a religion, because it's not a thing to blame. Obviously, Islam is responsible for a lot of this stuff. So in that sense, I do blame the religion, but you can't really do much about this pinning blame, except, I suppose, productively try to find the source and address it. So in that sense, I suppose, yeah, you do pin blame on religion, and you should. On the parents, no, I maintain that most of the time they're trying to do what's best for you and for them, but their view of reality is so diluted because of the religion that it comes out like this. Whatever their intentions or underlying issues or not are, I don't think it's too productive to linger on whose fault is it anyway. And do you think Islam can be reformed? I would say very, very unlikely, because it has a built-in mechanism to resist reform. That's just my opinion without getting too deeply into it right now. And to read Apostate's comment, I didn't realize how much childhood trauma has contributed to my upbringing by Islam until I started therapy and studying psychology, but it's just a matter of rewriting the brain, and it can happen. Thank you for the message of hope. It can happen. All right. I am taking the next caller, which is Bilal. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Bilal. How's it going?
I'm doing great, thanks. How's it going, Aladdin?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Great, great. Yeah, I'm just been listening last little while, and thanks to all these callers who have been, giving such great, having such a great input to the stream. I've been, chuckling at some of it because of the relatability and, feeling for some of us who go through, all of these challenges. So yeah, it's been awesome. I guess I could share a little bit about myself. I really just have one idea that maybe we could converse about, to do with coming out, I guess, as an ex-Muslim, and I guess the ramifications of that. But just a bit about myself. So I've been ex-Muslim. I feel like I've been an atheist for a long, long time, or at least had ideas about it, but haven't really, set my 10 toes down about atheism. Maybe for 2 years now, and I can say that it's probably been the greater parts of my life, I would say. Now, that being said, my background with my family isn't really so strict in religiosity. I have quite a liberal family when it comes to Islam, and I would consider them nominal Muslims. Nobody really prays so often, and you might use the term cultural Muslim, but I think it was Abdullah Samir who taught me that, nominal Muslim. I said, hey, I identify with that. So that's basically a bit about my background. I don't think I had the worst upbringing religiously, and it's only because of my own endeavor and I guess really trying to find truth for myself that I came to terms with my atheism and just like my lack of belief in Islam. And it's a bit of a mixture of, the toxicity that we all know about. I don't really need to get into any of that, but also just like really feeling true about my day-to-day. Some of the sentiments that callers before me were sharing were that, well, at least I remember with Mike, he was mentioning how, he never really felt anything. And like you mentioned with other commenters, I would put myself in that same boat as well. And I could never really like look at myself in the mirror and say like, that's a Muslim, So I needed to find out more, and I'm more of an answer seeker and a supporter of science, and education is a huge part of my life. So something like Islam, where it's very black and white and there's no room for question, is definitely not up my alley. So yeah, that's a bit about myself. And I guess the challenge, the challenging question that comes to mind, and I guess we could talk about, is just that idea of proclaiming your apostasy, right? So, Islamically, we should be dead and we should be put to death and all of those great things. But that's sarcasm, by the way. And the fact that that's true has always sat unwell with me. And like at the moment, I haven't really shared with anybody. I mean, I shouldn't say anybody. Like there are a few people. I mean, my brother, who is also, I wouldn't call him an atheism, but he's. I don't really know how to identify him. He doesn't really talk too much about that. He doesn't really want to create problems, but he knows. And that was like a safety measure. I like told him because I said, if one day something happens, like maybe you could connect whatever happens to this, because I started to learn about all of those things that the Quran and all the Hadith say about it, and not growing up in a household that didn't really focus on Quran reading and stuff, it just really shocked the hell out of me. So, or I guess shocked the hell into me. And so, I really tried to get answers with that. And I think that's the thing that sits as the most uncomforting at the moment for me. I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that, and maybe have a conversation about that.
About which part of it exactly? Sorry, because I want to be specific about what I'm answering.
What is your maybe a suggestion that you have
for coming
your
out,
viewers and listeners? Yes, for coming out. Like, what is a rule of thumb, or maybe like, what are your thoughts about it?
So rule of thumb is look out for your well-being first and foremost. And that, like, take that and apply it to your situation. Not everyone's the same. So what I mean by that is not, disregard everybody else and be selfish and screw them. They can go to hell. No, that's what they say about you. But no, I'm saying if it benefits you, and this is dynamic, like you don't have to come out the moment that you realize that you don't believe anymore. You can wait till it's a better time. You have to weigh the benefits and the downfalls. So not coming out and living a double life, for example, might be very harmful to your mental health, but to someone else it might not matter that much. They're just going about their life and they're in a place where it's not really affecting their life that much. Or for someone else the stakes are higher. If they come out, there's a lot of harm that they could get into. So it's really a delicate balance. I would just say don't rush into any big decisions. I know it might help in the meantime. For example, if someone's living a double life and they're forced to do that, at least for the time being, till they get to a more independent position and more of a position of power where they can actually come out, then maybe they can find spaces where they can be themselves, and that would give them a bit of temporary relief in between those stretches of pretending. That's just one thing that comes to mind. What do you think?
Well, I recently read the difference between cognitive dissonance and paradox, and I seem to feel like this idea of coming out kind of, I don't know which one it is exactly, because with cognitive dissonance, it's the difference between two thoughts and them not coexisting. But with, sometimes I feel like being an ex-Muslim is a bit paradoxical, closeted, I mean, because staying closeted kind of keeps you safe, but at the same time,
that depends on the situation, though.
Deal with the challenge of.
Now, here's the thing. Like, what if I'm just posing a situation? What if you leaving doesn't, put you in actual harm's way? It may be mental strain. Maybe you'll be excommunicated. Maybe you'll lose your family. Whatever situation, that may not be physical harm, but it's harm. But it could also be the other way around, that pretending could harm your mental health so much that you just lose your drive,
Totally.
It really depends on the situation. So it's not always safety, but it can be temporary safety. And sometimes you can get found out even if you are pretending, because people can see when you're not being absolutely 100% sincere. And if you're in that micromanaging type of environment, then you don't really have a choice, it seems. But yeah, all I'm saying is it really depends.
I can definitely see that. I mean, speaking, I guess I say that from a person, in my shoes, someone who comes from a bit more of a liberal background, and the reason I say that is because when I think about being open about it, I think about safety being maybe coming a bit second to that idea, like you mentioned, where the mental strife of it weighs too heavy on you. And I think that's where I battle with things at the moment, because I'm at this point where I try and figure out, okay, well, you know, at what point do I come out about this? Is it something completely necessary? How heavy is this actually weighing in on my life and in my day to day? You know, I don't live with my parents anymore. I'm out and about with a professional career, and so in my daily life, it's something like I mentioned in my introduction. Like, I don't have the same day-to-day trials as someone like Mike, for example. But when I think about getting together with my family or being close to them, family is still at the same time like a huge part of my life, and I plan on being home for a little while in the next bit. I think about like what it means to, you know, to share that. Is that something that my family is able to handle as nominal Muslims? And then, you know, there's that part of it, and then there's the part of like that information being disseminated into the Arab community or the Muslim community, and it be talk, you know, and then all of a sudden you got, you know, the local imam knocking at your door like, we heard so and so about this or something about so and so, and or you hear about it through friend groups or whatever. And is it ever something? Personally, I'm somebody who likes to keep my life quite private, and so I always try and think about that and say, well, do I ever want this to like come back and like get at me and then have like some like local quote unquote extremist dude, because we know that, you know, extremism is really just pure fundamentalist Islam, that some person who's actually practicing and is in belief of, you know, the apostasy laws of, you know, Sharia apostasy laws, that they, you know, find me or something like that, even though being in North America is like, you would think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But then there's like the social outcast situation, and then it's like, do I want to add that stress, you know? And I think it's a different context in comparison to people who have those problems with families who are quite practicing and do have quite a bit of Islam, like, you know, delegating their entire life. It's something that I definitely think about all the time.
But it's thank you for sharing it, because people might, like, I don't know if you feel that way, but some people in your situation might feel like it's not that bad, you know, at least I don't have a family on top of my head always trying to, you know, beat me into submission or something. It's still something that needs to be acknowledged. And if we don't talk about it, it's just always talking about the fewer extreme cases, which aren't even that extreme, but the more excruciating cases, and, you know, cases like yours are just not given as much attention. So thank you for talking about it. It is difficult, right? It's a different kind of difficult.
Yeah, that was my goal in bringing it out, because, you know, in listening to your channel and you know, being on the Reddit Ex-Muslim server, just hearing people's stories and not being able to relate to that level of extremism makes me, you know, feel not alienated, but a bit of the minority in the minority group. But, you know, where putting that out there, it's like, oh, well, your struggle isn't so bad kind of thing. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's fair. Like, it's fair, because I don't have to deal with a lot of those same, you know, things that weigh in on, you know, I didn't have my parents attacking me for listening to music. In fact, a lot of my music taste has come from my parents. And so it's quite a different experience. When I think about it realistically, I think about my grandparents, and, you know, that Islam is their entire life. And I wonder, like, you know, if it got back to my parents, well, definitely more of a conversation than it getting to my grandparents, who I really don't know how they would perceive me, because in one sense, they have nothing but love for me. But the second they find out I'm an apostate, well, that definitely changes the context of it. So something I think about a lot. But I just wanted to really just share that and not really take up too much more time. I know there are other callers who are eager. But I
appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that's it's a good reminder for people that it's not just about it's also a good reminder for those who are stuck in such a position, or even a difficult one, that once you've apostatized or you've left, and you're even out of the household, that's not exactly the end of the road. There's still more issues that are more subtle, or not as obvious at first. So it's good to think about these things, and I'm sure you'll arrive at the conclusion that works best for you. Just always keep in mind your own well-being, which you already are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. I guess the last thing I'll just leave it on is I always find it a bit ironic, or whatever you might call it, when just thinking about my grandfather, he wanted to, when I was born, he wanted to bring me back to Saudi Arabia and have me become an imam back home here. And so I just think, oh, that would have been a whole other situation. But
I'm glad that didn't happen to you. Yeah.
Likewise.
Jinx.
So, anyways, yeah. Oh, what I gotta e-transfer you for a soda, I guess then.
Yeah, sure.
Hey,
Links are in the
thanks a lot,
description.
Apostate Aladdin.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
You take care now, all right? Yeah.
Have a good one.
All right, then.
Bye-bye. All right. Thank you, Bilal. We've got 3 more callers. I'll try to get to them all. But first, I want to read a comment. It's very difficult, some of these comments. I'm not able to get to the full story, but Grotopia is saying, do blame the religion and the parents, because if it weren't for them, you wouldn't be suffering. I blame mine. I don't care. I don't care. They ruined my life so much, I'll never forgive them. And I know that the person here is in a position where I don't think they can escape from their family. They were saying that I don't know how to get help. I'm scared if I report them, nothing happens, and I'm stuck with them still, and they control me even more. My iPad is all I have, and I'm scared they'll break it, and I'll lose all my connection with my online friends. The first comments, when I saw them, I wanted to tell this person, try not to, pin blame and just keep thinking about who to be angry at or who to hate, because it's not gonna help you get out of there. But now it feels like it's just the least of their problems. I'm really sorry that you're in that position, and I have a feeling that you're in a location where you can get help from the authorities. But this is a reminder to people that things aren't that easy. Even if there are child protective services, they're scared of the backlash. People in that position are scared of the backlash, because if the police or the authorities don't do enough, which they usually don't do enough, especially in the context of so-called cultural or religious differences, then the person is stuck. It's like in the mafia. If you're outed as a rat, basically, your life becomes hell. I'm really sorry that you're in that position, and I promise you I'm doing my best. Long term, that is one of the things that I want to focus on. It's bringing awareness to people stuck in these situations, even in places where there are laws to protect them, but the laws aren't being enforced because of sensitivity around religion and Islamophobia and things like that. It's an unfortunate situation to be stuck in, and I'm really, really sorry, Critopia. Things will change, and just hang in there till you're in a position where you can make a move. I think I saw that they wouldn't let you move out, forced to wear the hijab. Unfortunately, lost my childhood, homeschooled me in 7th grade out of fear of dating, because non-Muslims are bad influence. Befriend your own people. Born and raised in America. I'm really, really sorry, and I promise you, even if you can't move out right now, and if they disapprove of you moving out, once you get to a more older, once you grow up a little bit, once you're in a better position, there will be a better chance to gain your independence and get help. And I will do my best to facilitate that for you and others, I hope. Okay, the next caller is KK. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Kay. How's it going?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for having me on. I'm really nervous.
That's okay.
I've come to a couple of live streams and wanted to share it, but I've always been kind of nervous, especially since I've actually been ex-Muslim for 10 or 11 years now, but this is still very new for me because I just kind of left the religion, and I sort of put it on the back burner and didn't want to look at it ever again. But here we are. So, and I feel a little bit like an imposter because, so I suppose the reason why I left the religion is different from a lot of similar stories that I've heard. I used to be very religious. I used to be very spiritual. My parents were also the more, liberal type. I'm from South Asia, but we grew up, in the Gulf. The Gulf in comparison, the sort of, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE area, it's, comparatively, not as strict, a lot easier to be, a liberal Muslim in, I guess. So I never really had any issues.
That depends on your your circle of friends and your socioeconomic status. I found the more the more affluent, the easier it is to be a more lax Muslim.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I agree. And those were the sort of circles we were in, right? We were in more, upper middle class, wealthier circles, who were all Muslim, and all my friends were Muslim, and everybody was Muslim, and it was just great community, great bonding experience for all of us. But I found that even then, I was always very curious or very interested in philosophy and the just creative thinking about what is sort of out there. And I was also very depressed. Clinically, I had 100%. I had clinical depression, most likely from when I was a child. I didn't get treatment for it until I moved out of the Middle East into Canada. I wonder why. But at that point, I was like 20. By the time I actually started getting treated. But being depressed is very important because ultimately that's what initially brought me towards Islam, more to the religion, more like, oh my gosh, Allah loves me, Allah doesn't give you more than you can handle, right? You hear that a lot, and if I can handle it, then I'm really strong, and I'm one of the favorites, I'm one of the special ones kind of thing. And I would hear that from my parents too. Allah can't give you more than you handle. So, you've got this basically. I used to have a lot of bad dreams, obviously surrounding the depression. I had nightmares for like 3 or 4 years straight. And honestly, now that I'm an adult, both my parents are doctors. I remember going to them and I remember being like, I'm scared to fall asleep. I'll have the same nightmare multiple times. This was like for months of me complaining, trying to sleep with them. And, the answer was always the same. Are you in Urdu, are you reciting your surahs? Are you reciting the Ayat al-Kursi? Are you reciting the Fatiha before you go to bed? The 3 quls, Surah Ikhlas, Nas, Falaq, etc. You do that, you follow your prayers and nothing's going to get you. Everything's going to keep you safe, right? Allah's going to keep you safe. And, as an adult, and I only really, it's weird how long it actually takes you to get unindoctrinated, because it was only several years after I stopped being a Muslim that I was like, wait a minute, they should have taken me to a psychiatrist or something, because it was not normal for me to be having those dreams. And they were so severe. And for like,
I'm sorry that you had to suffer through that for years and not get help for it.
Thanks, me too. And ultimately what saved me was me. Sorry, I'm gonna cry, and I cry a lot. It's gonna happen.
That's okay.
It's funny because this isn't even what I wanted to talk about initially, but I promised myself that the thing that was keeping me is that like I'm not at a point where I want to kill myself. And I was like, if you ever get to that point, you're going to tell somebody that you need to go to a doctor. And I left. So after I graduated, I left Abu Dhabi. I went to medical school, as there's the case with, I think, most South Asians and Arabs probably. Are you a doctor or a failure? So yeah, I went to medical school for a bit.
Dad, is that you? No, I'm joking.
Yeah. So I went to medical school back in my home country, which was, in South Asia. It was a much more conservative country. Mob mentality. You can't really say anything against the religion. Otherwise, anyone who might overhear you, you're in danger. And I had always had these thoughts about Islam and, not necessarily Islam, but the greater picture about on and off, I would think I would be questioning things a little bit. Like I was always, it's weird because I was very religious and I wore the hijab, my own choice, quote unquote, for like 5 or 6 years. But even then I was like considerably progressive. I was always the kind who was like, and hopefully you're probably demonetized anyway, but that, masturbation is not a big deal, guys, like ghetto. And I remember, looking for like, confirmation bias, looking for scholars that would basically agree with me. And eventually I found this, imam guy being like, yes, some scholars think that masturbation's okay if it prevents you from zina,
Yeah.
if it
Yeah, I had a friend who told me that same thing. He was like, "It's okay. I'm avoiding a bigger sin." So
Yeah, but when it comes to that, you can just keep justifying things. All of the scientific errors. I see the videos like as an ex-Muslim, I've seen a lot of I think Hassan Radwan's videos, and a couple of other apostates, and I was like, yeah, now it makes sense that this is all scientifically inaccurate. But like back then, it was like, it's not even like I believed it. It was just like, oh, it's metaphorical. 7 days, Earth was created in 7 days. How God knows how much that is in like Allah time. Maybe it's like 7 billion million years. I don't know.
So you got Allah time, you got Arab time, and then
yeah.
you got regular time.
Exactly. But I remember at least in the Gulf, I could talk about my progressive values, right? I could be like, yeah, I don't go to madrasa or I don't go to dars because I think that like everyone's full of shit. When people are like, you need to get married, woman's duty is to get married, a man's duty is to provide for his family. But when I went to this conservative country, the South Asian country, and I joined medical school and I was living in a dorm. I was living away from my house, which was still comparatively progressive. And I was living in a dorm with 100 other girls, same age, and all from different places, a lot of them from rural South Asia. So with a lot of conservative values. And one thing I remember being kind of horrified about, which nobody, people told me that my reaction was out of proportion. But I prided myself on I read the Quran so many times, I read the translations, I read it in my language, in English, I read the tafsir, and I was horrified, quote unquote, to find out that a lot of people, who were a lot more religious than me, because I didn't used to pray. I thought I was lazy, but it turns out I was just depressed. I just couldn't get out of bed. Sorry, God. But according to my parents, I was just lazy and I didn't pray. But I fasted and I read the Quran, and I found that a lot of girls, a lot of the girls around me, they would pray 5 times, they would get up for tahajjud, and they would be reading the Quran, very, very regularly. And I would talk to them and they wouldn't have read the translation or the tafsir or anything, and even for me as a Muslim at the time, I was like, how can you guys just believe this? Which was hilarious because I had read everything and I still believed it. But I think you understand sort of, my point of view, where I think that, maybe I was definitely indoctrinated 100%, but maybe somebody who was already questioning if they actually read, deeper into the verses, maybe this would have helped them. And
well, what's ironic is here's an Arab supremacist idea that not me personally. I mean, eventually I used to have it, but I was always taught that, say, for example, Pakistani Muslims, sure, like they're Muslims, but don't listen to their lectures and stuff because they don't understand Arabic. They're further removed from the religion. Even they keep repeating verses and stuff. They don't even understand what they're reading, which, it's not something that they should be shamed for because, and I'm not saying you're doing that. I mean, like as a Muslim looking at them, because it's not their fault they don't speak Arabic. You're lucky you're born with Arabic person who's saying that. But I realized that most Arabs also have the same level of knowledge as a Pakistani Muslim, for example. because even though they understand the language, they've never actually thought for a second about what it is they're reading, let alone looked into the tafsir. So you went above and beyond what an Arab Muslim would do.
Thanks. That's really interesting you bring that up, because one thing we would hear a lot in basically any Arab country we were in was like, oh, you don't speak Arabic, but the Quran is in Arabic, you know? And I'd be like, yeah, I know. We read the tafsir, we're fine. You know, we read it in our language. But I definitely, you know, now that I'm out, I see that too, where there's just this sense of superiority.
And the entitlement, they're like, you're a Muslim, but you don't speak Arabic, as if you're supposed to drop everything that you're doing and go learn a language, aside from already learning a religion that wasn't, I suppose, your, you know, ancestors' religion or something. Yeah, it's a weird entitlement.
Yeah, 100%. And it's weird because they taught Arabic for non-Arabs in school, but it was just super like very formal, you know, like instead of being like, you know, shu, you know, for what it's not spoken Arabic, it's like mahada, you know.
It's like someone
Okay.
was saying that your pronunciation is pretty good for a Desi, and I could tell that's because you were taught Arabic in school, like Fusha Arabic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I digress. And going back to sort of medical school, that's where oh my gosh, I'm having flashbacks. I got into this. One of my roommates who eventually moved to a different school, she, I remember there was this dars at the dorms, and some lady, you know, some lady who wears a hijab and a burqa would, you know, come and, you know, lecture for a little bit. And I remember my roommate getting into an actual verbal sort of like assault fight altercation with me because I wasn't going to go to dars, you know. And I was like, her name was Taha, so I'll just say Taha. You know, I was like, Taha, you know, like, I'm not stopping you from going. Like, you know, like, are you or are you not a Muslim? Yes, I am a Muslim, but, you know, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that people say. So I'm not stopping you from going. Why won't, you know, why are you fighting with me? Like, I'm just chilling, you know, I'm just on my bed. Just like, leave me alone. But I remember like my two other roommates had to like talk her down and just sort of like physically kind of be like, okay, Taha, let's go. We're going to be late. Because she was just standing there and yelling at me for not going. And I was Muslim, you know, so like, you know, so imagine if I told anyone there, yeah, you know, I'm not sure if I believe in Islam 100%, that I think it would have actually been a danger. And that's kind of scary to think about. But ultimately, as I got more and more depressed, you know, being there, you know, being surrounded by people who, you know, I had some friends, but I couldn't tell anybody how I felt inside, you know, moving towards Islam and then away from Islam because I was very progressive. You know, I went really close, and then I found that I was, you know, trying to pray the depression away, I guess. And I found that no matter how much praying I was doing, I was still sick, and I was not getting better. I was getting worse. And I was averaging like 2 hours of sleep every night because that's what untreated depression does. And, you know, takes everything away from you. You know, when you sleep, you have bad dreams. And it was just, I was like, okay, maybe I need to leave Allah for a while. Maybe I'm putting, you know, this blame is still on me. It's not that like leaving Allah, like leaving the religion. It's like, maybe I'm putting too much pressure on Allah. You know? Like maybe
you're asking too much of him. Please, can I not be sad? Oh, sorry. Like,
please.
Yeah.
Like,
No
I know I
pressure.
didn't pray 5 times today, but like, come on, man. You know? So I was like, okay, maybe this is another test, right? But the more you think about it, the more you try to justify it, the more it's like, you know, this doesn't make like, am I bad? Am I being punished? What did I do? What am I being punished for? You know? And the more I started having these sort of thoughts, the more I was like, you know, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, I need to actually take a step back. But again, it was like, not that like I'm leaving the religion. It's like, you know, all good. Like, I'm taking a step back to sort of work on myself, and I'm not going to think about God too much. I'm not going to like pray to God. I'm just, you know, maybe I just don't understand the religion well enough. So I'm just going to take a step back and do work on myself. and continue to question, because, questioning isn't healthy. I heard another verse I heard from like sort of apologists, because I've heard people tell me don't question, otherwise you won't get a big house in heaven. You'll only get a tiny little house in heaven. That's actually something I've
Like I
heard.
care. Like, okay, at least I'm not in hell. I
Yes.
can upgrade later. I
Yeah.
don't understand.
Sheesh, if
Yeah.
if my dad's above me in like the next layer of heaven, he can just pull me up with him, like that's, so it's either that I heard, or I heard, oh no, you're supposed to question. It's okay if you're questioning, because Islam says, or the Quran says, that you shouldn't you shouldn't believe something until you absolutely know for sure. And I remember reading like a similar verse somewhere. I don't remember which verse it was, but that was a sort of sentiment. But that's sort of what I did. My depression got really bad towards the end of my second or third year in med school. My parents had moved, to Canada at this time. And I remember I called my mother and I told her, I was like, Mother, I can't do this. I need to see a psychiatrist, because that was the point. And, I'm sort of skipping over details because I know we have other callers, but that was the point, after like 3-ish years of being around people, being inside, being depressed, being, alone, having had nobody to talk to and nobody to be like, does God hate me? Like, is this my fault? What have I done? And then being like, if I haven't done anything, then why is this happening to me? And thinking about, like, is there another explanation out there, like spiritually, for this? So I remember calling my mother in the middle of the night and I was like, Mom, I have to leave. I have to leave. Can you buy me a plane ticket? And my mom, God bless her, she yelled at me. I love her so much. She yelled at me. I had to hang up the phone because she wouldn't stop yelling. And then she called me and she continued to yell at me. And, being like, this is like a dishonor on our family, and how could you leave? You have exams and you're in med school and blah, blah, blah. And I hung up and I didn't answer her phone again. And the next day I got a message from her, and it was an email attachment, an email forward, and she had bought me this plane ticket. So her initial reaction was horrible, very traumatizing. But she sort of, and I'm pretty sure she has depression too, but she got the plane ticket and she apologized. She actually apologized. She's like, I'm sorry for yelling at you. I should have been more understanding. And because as long as you go back later, here's your ticket. And I got on a plane and I went to Canada. And this was like 10 years ago and I'm still here. So I never went back. Ultimately, I never went back because I was depressed. I was extremely depressed. I was not going to live. If I went back, I would not have stayed alive. I'm
glad you didn't go back then.
Yeah. So, and that's sort of rounding back to all of this, is that ultimately I saved myself, because the first time I tried to kill myself, I made that phone call and I came to Canada and I talked to a doctor. My mom yelled at me some more, but bless her, she, I didn't know how to do anything. I was like 17 and I was a female and I was super sheltered, and, you don't know how to go to the doctor. You don't know how to go to the bank. You don't know how to do anything because, your parents are like, you can't do it alone. We're going to come with you. We'll do it for you. So I didn't know, like, I was in this new country and I thought that, the fear of, this fear of outsiders as a Muslim. So I thought that everyone here hated me. I thought that I was being judged because I was a Muslim. So that was also a thing, right? So I had all these conflicting things going on in my head. And my mom made an appointment for me with our physician. And she, she dropped me off. And yeah, that was a long process, about a year of, medication and therapy. And I'm pretty happy to say that I'm doing a lot better now. And it's not because of it's not because I read, Ayatul Kursi before I went to bed, right? And it's not because I prayed 5 times a day or because I fasted 30 days a year. So, you know, and it's really hard, Aladdin, like really. It's so hard because, you know, I still have my dad tell me, you know, why are you still on medication? You need to wean off, you know. You know, it's weird because both my parents are doctors, so I don't understand. But you know, like, yeah, it's so
I'm so sorry. I'm on one hand, I'm happy that you eventually got help and things are better than they used to be, but I'm sorry that it's a sustained barrier in the way of your healing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's funny because like none of this is what I wanted to talk about.
That's okay.
But this is, you know, honestly probably one of the bigger things that actually made an impact. And it's interesting because I only started noticing all my problems with Islam like after having ultimately I went down to, well, you know, once I was better and I had more time to do, you know, my philosophical thinking, which I like to do, it was like, this is going to sound so dumb, but the actual thing that made me be like, I'm not a Muslim anymore, I think, is that I'm just like, well, you know, everyone thinks they're right. You know, like, you know, we have like Ahmadis think they're right. We were Sunni, you know, and like the Sufis think they're right and the Christians think they're right. And I'm just like, well, I think it's kind of dumb of me to just be like, yeah, you know what? We Sunni Muslims, we are right. Not those guys. We are so right. We are so right. And everyone else is wrong. And there's like something my Islamic teacher told me. There's like 99 different ways to worship Allah, but only one of them is the right way, and our way is the right way. Like, okay, you know, and it's so weird that despite all of, you know, everything that happened and a lot of other things, that was the thing that actually was, for me, it was like, it was just illogical. It was just not, you know, backed by, you know, it didn't make any sense. And we had no reason to believe this. And we had no empirical evidence to believe this, despite what Daniel see, I can't say his name. Could you like to say? I've seen videos of him debating, being like, you know, we have empirical evidence, but actually, what is it? Like, no. And it's funny because I'm going to end this on a happy note. I'm not going to talk too much longer because I know we have another caller. But it's funny because I've ended up a researcher ultimately. So now every time someone goes like, oh, you know, XYZ claim has been backed by medical science, you know, I'm sure you've heard it, you know, scientific claim of Quran. I'm just like, yes, well, actually, for this, and this reason, you can't, that's no, it's just not right.
They're citing the wrong thing or misunderstanding what they're citing.
Exactly.
And it's just so stupid. Yeah.
It's so dumb. And it's just like, you know, they'll take like, you know, let's just assume, you know, they'll make like what's it called? A mountain out of a molehill, I guess. Like there was this hadith about like, you know, tahniq, where, you know, you take a date and you rub it on the inside of a newborn baby's mouth when they're born as like sunnah or like honey or something. And, you know, it's, you know, there's some study done a couple of years ago that was like, oh yeah, you know, if you have a premature baby and you use XYZ sugar gel thing, it's better for the baby. And, you know, Muslims are like, subhanallah, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, you know? And when you actually look at it, surprise, sugar gel is nowhere near the same as a date. It is also not the same as honey, which is actively advised against. You're not supposed to give newborn babies honey because they can develop botulism toxin, you know, and all these sort of like things that are just like, there's no way for you to equate it's just not scientifically correct. You can't do it. But anyways, I digress. Thanks, Apostasy, for having me here. I know you've got a bunch of callers waiting, so I'm not gonna continue. Maybe next time, hopefully, at some point.
Yeah.
Ramadan Kareem. Eid Mubarak, etc., etc.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in today. Yeah. Take care, KK.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. I'm sorry, everyone. As explained to the other two callers, I will have to go. I do have an emergency. Just something, and shut your ears if you don't want to hear this, because I'm going to be a bit vulgar. I just want to tell this person to please fuck off. Please fuck off. Like, here's a Muslim coming to this space, listening to us talk, and all they can say is the usual. Of course you're depressed, like the state of marfu' al-qalam. Fuck off. You and your religion, just fuck right off. You don't realize how annoying you are, how stupid you sound, because you're reveling in someone else's suffering, seeing like you're saying things like God said you're going to be depressed if you're not religious. No, we're depressed because of your presence, you and your religion. You're the cause of the suffering, and then rubbing it in our faces. Like, just fuck right off. I'm sorry, but I have a lot going on in my life, and it pisses me off to see these people so blatantly, like, just reminding us of how Muslims can behave, and no one's going to call them out on it. So yeah, sorry to end the stream like that, but I just wanted to remind that person that this is not your space. Right? All of this nonsense that you're spewing, you don't realize how dumb you sound. If I'm being nice and I'm placating people, like I have a limit, and I can tell a moron to just fuck right off. And with that, I say goodbye to the monetization of whatever was left of it. Thank you everyone who joined today. I'm really sorry to be this frustrated, but I have to get going. Think critically and think for yourself.